Years earlier, 12-year-old Layla is on a train, clinging to the memory of her parents' last promise to visit the park when the flowers bloom in spring. Spring never comes again, and that promise lingers in her mind as the last warmth before her life changes entirely. Left alone in the world, she slowly grows used to moving from one relative's house to another. In her aunt's home, the children harass her until bruises form on her skin, and no one intervenes when her uncle's temper flares, especially after losing money at the gambling tables. In another house, she humbles herself and promises obedience, willing to do anything just to remain, yet she is sent away once more. A different relative dismisses her simply because she is a girl, declaring she would only become a burden. And so she continues moving, learning that staying anywhere is never certain. Over time, abandonment begins to feel ordinary, even coming from her own mother. Eventually, one relative refuses to keep her but hands her a paper with a name, directing her to find Berg. That single name becomes her next hope and destination. She boards a train that crosses the border from Levita, the city where she was born and raised, to Berg. When she arrives, a quiet sense of connection warms her, knowing it is her father's birthplace, and she feels grateful that she can speak the Berger accent. For a brief moment, memories of a time when her family lived in harmony float through her mind. Searching for the address, she approaches a postman for guidance. He reads the name on the paper, Bill Lemmer, and since he is headed there himself, tells her to follow him. Along the way, she notices the Duke's grand mansion and wonders what kind of life Bill Lemmer leads as a gardener in such a magnificent place. Finally, standing before him, uncertainty floods her. She confirms his identity and introduces herself as Layla Lulin. As she struggles to explain why she has come, the postman hands Bill the letter. The letter reveals that she is Albert Llewellyn's daughter. It explains her mother's departure after an affair, Albert's descent into alcohol, his illness, and death. It details how she has been passed between relatives who treat her poorly and states that the sender's family is too poor to care for her. Among all the relatives connected to her, Bill is the only one considered capable of taking responsibility, though he is free to send her to an orphanage if he refuses. Bill is taken aback. Though related, he never knew her father. Divorced and financially strained, he feels the weight of a responsibility he never asked for. Yet as he looks at her small, thin figure standing with only one suitcase, the situation becomes impossible to ignore. She tells him she will soon be 12 and that she can read and help if needed. After work, he takes her home. The quiet house makes it clear that he lives alone. He offers her food and watches as she eats, noting her small appetite, but insisting she finish. When he asks if she is afraid, she explains that he does not shout or hit her, and that he feeds her well. Her gratitude unsettles him, revealing just how little kindness she has ever known. Though his financial situation is tight, he begins to consider seriously what it would mean to let her stay. However, he tells her to remain indoors until her residence is fully decided. The next morning, she shyly asks if Bill slept well, and he gives a warm, positive response. Seeing him preparing breakfast, she quietly offers to carry the dishes to the table. After they eat, she thanks him sincerely, but he insists that she eat more, and a small, contented smile spreads across her face. Soon, news begins to circulate throughout the mansion that Bill is raising a young girl. The maids whisper among themselves, some with doubt in their voices. They find it unusual since he has lived alone for so long after his wife passed. Rumors about his wife's inability to have children resurface, and they wonder how a man like him could possibly raise a girl. Yet one suggests perhaps he might surprisingly be good at it, given his natural talent for nurturing flowers. After all, he is the mansion's best gardener and has even been recognized by the great lady of the household. Still, others argue quietly that flowers and children are not the same. Layla gradually becomes familiar with the grounds and the people in them. She offers a maid a small bunch of flowers and in return receives some cookies, thanking the maid politely. Meanwhile, whenever anyone asks Bill about the girl, he responds vaguely that he will think about it. He makes it clear that she cannot stay indefinitely and that he must decide on her future. Spring arrives, and it becomes a common sight to see her moving alongside Bill, helping with small tasks and learning from him. Despite her presence, many employees still believe that Bill is suited only to care for flowers, not a child. Visitors begin coming more frequently. Someone brings leftover cookies and bread from the previous night's tea party. When he protests that he does not care for sweets, he is reminded that they are for Layla. Over time, he notices that people seem to use her as an excuse to come to the house. One brings clothes, another brings books, and even ladies who had never visited before now arrive. Some simply appear without any reason at all, and he finds it mildly troublesome. A lady explains that it is because Layla is beautiful, kind, and polite, qualities that naturally draw care and attention. She remarks that it is delightful to watch the girl scurry through the forest and gardens like a little squirrel. She also observes that it has been a long time since the Duke's territory had a house filled with such lively joy. She reminds Bill that the little Duke had been just like her in his youth. Suddenly, the lady notices Layla climbing a tree and expresses surprise. Bill explains calmly that someone had taught her that knowing how to climb is useful. The lady questions this sharply, but he insists that he is raising her properly. She argues that, as a girl, Layla should be treated delicately, like a flower, and not raised with such ruggedness. Bill responds firmly but gently that she will be fine, as long as she eats well and sleeps soundly. When asked again about her future, he falls silent. That silence makes them assume she will ultimately be sent to an orphanage. Yet in his heart, he carefully considers where she might go without being hurt again. Summer arrives, and under his warm care, Layla continues to grow. The forest changes with each passing day. Plants bear ripe, sweet fruits, and animals roam further along with the warm wind. As she watches sunlight dance across the surface of the Shulta River, she feels a sense of freedom, as if the nightmare in Lovita had finally faded. She often sits in her favorite tree, writing in her notebook about everything she sees and feels. She carefully records each day, wanting to preserve these memories in case her life becomes difficult again. When she finishes writing, she returns home, feeling quietly content. One day, she asks where Bill is going. He explains that they need to go into town and that she should get ready. Her expression falls slightly, but he reassures her that they are only going to buy clothes. With the Duke returning soon, it would seem improper for her to greet him otherwise. On the way, she asks about the Duke. Bill explains that the Duke spends his summers in Arvis and is returning now that the season has ended. He mentions that even at 18 years old, the Duke still attends school. She is surprised by his age, and he adds casually that the Duke became Duke at her age. Finally, the day of the Duke's arrival comes. He steps down from his carriage, and the employees greet him respectfully before guiding him toward the mansion. Another carriage waits, and someone remarks that his mother still worries excessively, believing cars are dangerous. The Duke, however, is unbothered and seems content to try something classic after so long. At the mansion, the employees stand ready to welcome him properly. The mansion employees stand attentively, all being addressed, and Layla wonders why everyone seems so tense and nervous. Shortly after, a maid comments on her new dress, drawing a small, shy smile from her. Soon, the Duke arrives. His grandmother greets him warmly, and he embraces her and his mother, who remarks on how tall he has grown. They walk through the mansion, and Layla quietly wonders why no one else is greeting the Duke. Bill explains that the formal greetings are planned for the next day. On the way back, he casually tells her that Duke Albert often visits the forest, so they can ask for permission if needed. He adds that the Duke enjoys hunting, which surprises her. She questions why he hunts when the mansion already has more than enough food, and he explains that it is a pastime for nobles, noting that birds are the most challenging and interesting targets. She quietly hopes the Duke does not enjoy hunting too much, and he realizes he may have said things a young girl should not hear. A week later, Layla walks through the trees, listening to the soft sounds of the forest. She discovers that the eggs she has been watching have finally hatched. She finds the baby birds utterly adorable and notes that they should wait for their mother to return with food. The sight brings back a memory of asking her own mother if she had to wait for her before eating, and the comforting reassurance her mother had given her. Suddenly, a larger bird appears, which she assumes is the mother, and she carefully climbs down. She wonders if they will see the fledglings fly soon and wants to tell her uncle about it. Just then, she hears a noise and peers through the trees, spotting someone approaching on horseback. She hopes he will pass by, but he stops and relaxes near the tree she is perched on. She watches him closely, almost losing her balance, but manages to steady herself. The man quickly raises his gun, aiming in her direction. Fear grips her, and she hurriedly explains that she only intended to descend after he passed. He asks who she is. She tells him her name, jumps down, and begins running. Bill notices her and calls out, asking what has happened. She explains that she met a tall man in the forest with piercing blue eyes and a voice that reminded her of a waterfowl. Bill chuckles softly, realizing she has encountered Duke Herhart hunting in the woods. He reassures her gently that she will meet the Duke often in the forest. Suddenly, they hear her name called again, followed by the sharp report of a gunshot. Layla freezes in shock, but Bill quickly calms her and insists they head home safely. Matthias Vin Herhart, apart from the king, is the successor of a highly respected family said to have everything. He carries himself with the dignity and restraint of the highest aristocracy, praised by everyone as the masterpiece of the Herhart lineage. All around him treat him with sincere care and admiration, except for Layla, who sees him differently. That day in the woods, countless birds lost their lives under his aim. To him, the smaller the bird, the more challenging and fascinating the target. Layla notices the mother bird is gone and the weak chicks have perished. Saddened, she takes it upon herself to dispose of them, quietly giving the Duke a nickname in her mind: the Slayer of the Beautiful Birds. Sitting on a mat under a tree, she wonders if she too might end up alone. Bill works nearby under the hot sun, but whenever she insists on joining him, he gently tells her to rest on the mat, eat peaches if she is hungry, and come down when called. She accepts his guidance reluctantly. Soon, a boy walking by stops and greets her. He asks if she lives there, and she affirms, saying she stays with Uncle Bill. Curious, he asks if Bill is scary, and she reassures him that he is not. She questions if the boy lives there too, and he explains that he is visiting with his father, the family doctor, who is attending Dowager Herhart's examination that day. Silence falls briefly between them. He asks her age. She responds, and he notes that he is 12 as well. He remarks that she seems small, but she points out that she's the same size as him. He laughs and admits he is the tallest in his class, yet still small compared to Uncle Bill, who towers over all adults. They chat comfortably, and he remarks on how pleasant it is under the tree. She wonders if he is reluctant to leave, and in response, she picks up a knife, cuts a peach in half, and offers him one. He accepts. After a while, he notices she seems sad and asks why. She tells him about the Duke hunting birds for sport. He considers it normal, but reassures her that he feels sorry for the animals and does not partake in such activities, leading her to silently decide that he is a good person. She offers him another peach, which he accepts, commenting on its sweetness. Soon his mother calls him, noting it is time to go home. He introduces himself properly as Kyle Ettman, and Layla returns the gesture, accepting his handshake. He remarks that it was nice meeting her and promises they should play again. He also promises to bring her something delicious next time. Layla wonders if they will see each other again, aware that she might leave soon. He runs off to his mother, who notices Layla under the tree and asks who she is. Kyle explains that they are the same age, and his mother turns to take a careful look at Layla. Shortly, Bill comes calling, and Layla runs to meet him, her small feet barely making a sound on the floor. He asks if she is hungry, and she quickly tells him what she has eaten. She also mentions that she met a boy earlier. As they walk together, they suddenly see the Duke and his men engaged in discussion about their hunting. A familiar wave of sadness washes over her again. Bill greets the Duke politely, noting that it has been a while. He apologizes and explains that he would like Layla to stay in Arvis for the time being. Though he has already asked permission from the two duchesses, he feels it would be disrespectful not to consult the Duke as well. One of the men asks if she is the child they saw in the woods, and the Duke recalls the girl perched in the tree. He nods in approval, and they walk on. Layla keeps her gaze fixed on the bird one of them carries, lost in thought, until Bill gently reminds her that it is time to go home. Back at the mansion, a girl named Claudine sits at the table, sighing softly. She admits that it has been lonely and boring. The others suggest she go play with the boys, but she protests, saying they treat her as if she isn't even there. Miss Herhart agrees, noting that it must indeed be lonely for her since she has no friends her own age. Claudine suddenly asks about a child she has seen, and insists that she wants to play with her. Miss Herhart initially declines, explaining that the girl is an orphan from abroad, and not meant to be her playmate. Claudine persists, arguing that playing with the girl would be better than playing with a puppy. Her mother looks on in disbelief. Miss Herhart rings a bell, instructing the staff to bring the child. A maid approaches Bill to inform him, and he is surprised, questioning why. The maid explains that a young lady from the Brandt family specifically requested to play with Layla. Bill wonders why a high-class noble would concern herself with an orphan, but Layla quickly reassures him not to worry, promising she will return soon. When she arrives, Layla notices that Miss Herhart is strikingly beautiful. The woman calls her an adorable child and asks Claudine if she likes her, to which Claudine responds with a cheerful yes. Layla is puzzled by their attention and the questions. In this world of elaborate clothes and formal manners, it seems that no one usually considers her feelings. Miss Herhart then calls for the maids and gives clear, firm instructions. They lead Layla to a lavish room she has never seen before. There, she is bathed in a luxurious bathroom, dressed in soft, beautiful white clothes, and her hair is combed carefully. The touch is slightly uncomfortable, but she endures it, knowing it is Madame Herhart's order, and that any mistakes could bring trouble for Bill. A maid reminds her that Claudine is Count Brandt's daughter, and that she should behave with care in her presence. Layla nods and follows the maid, stepping cautiously toward Claudine, who greets her warmly and invites her to come in. Layla steps inside, and Claudine immediately asks her name. She responds, giving her age as well. Claudine seems surprised, admitting she thought Layla was younger since she is so small. Layla thinks to herself that this is the second time today she has heard that, but she decides to endure it for Uncle Bill's sake. Soon, Claudine asks if she can play the piano. Layla says no, noting silently that it's her first time even seeing one. Next, she is asked if she knows how to arrange flowers, play dice, card games, or chess. Again, she admits she has never tried any of them. Claudine frowns, considers this for a moment, and then declares that Layla is just a child who doesn't know anything. She says she waited in vain, hoping Layla would be fun, but now thinks she is no better than a puppy. Left alone, Layla feels the urge to return home to Uncle Bill, but she hesitates, wondering if Claudine might come back. Soon, a maid appears and gives her a coin. She stands staring at it, unsure what to do, until the maid places it in her hand, explaining that it is polite to accept a gift from a noble. Layla decides not to dwell on Claudine's harsh words. Suddenly, she hears her name and turns to see Claudine accompanied by 2 boys. She feels relieved that the Duke is not with them. Claudine bids her farewell, leaving in a hurry. Shortly after, Layla stumbles and falls. Raising her head, she sees the Duke standing there, his gaze sharp and cold, as if she were an insignificant being that could be crushed. For a moment, the corner of his red lips curls up, but then he realizes what is happening, and the lingering pain that had washed over him begins to fade. The words Claudine had said, "She's no better than a puppy," echo in his mind. Layla bows and runs away, holding back tears. She dashes through the forest, the warm light from the mansion guiding her back. As she sees the house, a new understanding settles over her. The aching in her chest, the tightness in her throat. This is sadness. The next day, Bill asks if she plans to go to the woods. She shakes her head, saying she will stay at home. He nods, understanding. It has been 2 days since her visit to the main mansion, and she has been unusually quiet, keeping to her room most of the time. The house feels strangely still. Bill sits at the table, noticing how empty and silent everything has become. Before they eat, Layla carefully hands him the coin she received. Bill takes it, realizing why she's been so down since returning. He asks why she is giving it to him. She explains that the money is too big for her, but even if it is small, she wants to repay him for everything he has done for her. Bill looks at her, remembering the evening she ran back home. He had suspected she had done some chore that might have caused her injuries, but pretended not to notice, not wanting to make her cry. Now he tells her to keep it. She earned it. He explains that it was a job that involved helping an aristocrat who was extremely bored. Layla is surprised. Bill smiles and congratulates her, saying that entering the adult world sometimes comes quietly, without warning. She hesitates, asking if she isn't too young for that. Bill explains that being able to earn a living on her own makes her an adult. She thinks it is just 1 gold coin, but he points out that many people struggle to earn even a fraction. Then he offers her plenty of food and reminds her that he likes kids who eat heartily, like a cow. Layla asks if eating well will help her grow taller. Bill nods and asks if anyone has ever bullied her about being small. She admits it's just that she looks too tiny. He gives her apple juice and asks if she could buy a notebook and some colored pencils. Then she asks if he wants to buy something. When he jokes about something expensive, she promises she will earn more to get it for him. Bill smiles, noting he is looking forward to that. He thinks to himself that she is a bright, lovely child. She does not yet have a full figure, but she will grow into a very pretty young woman. Yet he cannot shake a worry. Beauty can sometimes be like a poison for a woman in difficult circumstances. If she wanders without guidance, it would be easy for her to get into trouble. He wants to send her somewhere safe, somewhere he can trust. But no such place seems to exist. Days pass, and Bill continues to ponder why he cannot let her grow up elsewhere while keeping her safe. The newly bought clothes become slightly crinkled as the radiant girl blossoms into full bloom. The small room that had served as a temporary space is now transformed into a gentle, airy room befitting a young lady. Now, Layla is 18, fresh and beautiful, much like the rose Bill has carefully tended all these years. Even so, she remains here in Arvis, still together with Bill, her steadfast guardian. Layla brings home a small basket of ripe raspberries and excitedly shows them to Uncle Bill. She beams as she notes what a wonderful harvest it has been, and mentions that she plans to go pick more the next day, hoping to turn them into raspberry jam. Bill raises an eyebrow, teasing her gently, asking if she's thinking of starting a jam business. She shrugs with a small smile, saying it doesn't seem like such a bad idea after all. Then she hands him some of the peaches she picked as well, and he laughs softly, remarking that summer must have arrived again, seeing how well the peaches have grown. Layla feels a little thrill in her chest, happy that he notices the little things she does. That night, she stays awake in her room, reading quietly by the soft glow of a lamp. Exams are just around the corner, and she notices her eyes straining more quickly than before. She thinks about saving enough money to buy herself a pair of glasses, knowing they will help her study better. Her thoughts drift to the raspberries in the forest. She imagines gathering them all and making enough jam to sell, hoping to earn a little income for herself. Bill walks in and finds her still reading. He asks gently why she hasn't gone to bed yet. She explains that she wants to study a little longer. He nods with a soft smile, praising her diligence but reminding her not to overwork herself. She accepts his advice obediently, feeling both comforted and motivated. Some time ago, Bill decided to send her to school despite protests from those around him. Many questioned why an orphan girl needed an education, arguing that even if she continued living in the mansion, she could eventually marry into a proper family or work as a maid for the duchy. They didn't see the point of schooling for a child like her. Bill ignored their objections, believing strongly that Layla deserved the opportunity to learn and grow. Walking behind him each day on the way to school, Layla slowly discovers more about the strange world beyond the mansion walls. Each day brings new knowledge and curiosity, filling her with excitement. She eagerly shares what she learns with Bill, and he always responds warmly, telling her that she will grow up to become an outstanding adult. Those words settle in her heart like a gentle spell, and she cherishes them deeply. Determined to become that outstanding adult, Layla resolves to excel in her exams, seeing it as the first step in repaying Bill for everything he has done for her. When summer vacation finally arrives, she feels both excitement and anticipation. She knows that the Duke will soon return, now that he has graduated from college and been commissioned as an army officer, following the family tradition from the Royal Military Academy. He hasn't visited Arvis since the summer 2 years ago because he served on overseas front lines. Now, as she thinks of his return, she remembers the distant sound of gunfire echoing through the woods. During the vacation, one of her friends talks excitedly about going on holiday with her family and asks about Layla's plans. She admits she hasn't decided yet. Soon, her friend points to a familiar figure nearby, and Layla turns to see Kyle. He waves at her warmly, and she waves back before quickly saying goodbye to her friends and running up to him. She teases him, asking why he came all this way, and suggests it might have been more comfortable if he had come to her home later. Kyle laughs, explaining that he decided to stop by since he was passing, adding that he even skipped tennis club practice just to walk home from school with her. His teammates, standing nearby, mutter complaints about his absence, noting that he is once again going to see that girl. As they walk together, Kyle admits that he ran as fast as he could to reach her and comments on how hot the day has become. Then he asks if she would like to eat ice cream, and she happily agrees. Afterward, she suggests stopping by the bookstore to check out a book she has been wanting, and he nods in agreement. Meanwhile, his teammates shake their heads, muttering that he should be reminded to come to club practice the next day, or they might permanently remove him from the team. In the bookstore, Layla shows him the book she wants. She speaks excitedly about the migratory birds returning for the season, explaining that she wants to write and document the different types of birds she observes during her vacation. Kyle listens quietly, his gaze lingering on her as she talks. He wonders silently whether today might finally be the day he should confess that he likes her. Layla notices him staring, and she asks quietly if he wants to say something to her. He shakes his head, denying it, then quickly changes the topic of conversation. She insists that they go home, but Kyle hesitates. In his mind, he reasons that it's not the right time to confess because he doesn't yet know her feelings for him. Rushing into a confession might make her uncomfortable, and he doesn't want to risk their friendship. Still, he feels impatient whenever he sees her growing more beautiful day by day. He wants to be patient, wanting to see her smile for a long time. Then, truthfully, he wonders if it's even necessary to start with the word lover. They have known each other for so long, and perhaps it would be better to become a couple right away. Like a husband and wife who are comfortable with each other and live in a way no one else could. He imagines marrying her immediately after graduating from college and wonders how she would look in a wedding dress. In his heart, he decides that no bride in the world would ever be more beautiful than her. Kyle Ettman's wife, Layla Ettman. The thought makes him grin, and suddenly he bursts into laughter. Layla looks at him in surprise and asks why he's laughing. She teases, wondering if it's because she failed her geometry test. Kyle feigns shock, while she reminds him that he wouldn't understand since he always gets perfect grades in geometry. He chases after her, laughing, and tells her they should go together. As they walk, he mentions the Duke's return and asks how she can remain uninterested. He notes that the mansion is in chaos because of it. Layla shivers slightly at the thought. Though it was Lady Claudine who humiliated her before, the Duke has left a different kind of scar on her heart, a scar that reaches deeper than the contempt and persecution she suffered as a wandering child among relatives' homes. Whenever she sees the Duke, that memory resurfaces, and she tries her hardest to avoid him. Kyle, trying to lighten the mood, wonders if he should become an officer like the Duke and earn medals. Layla teases him, reminding him he can't even kill a chicken. He frowns and asks why she brings that up again. He recalls a day last year when Bill had questioned why he kept coming to their house instead of going home. Bill pointed out that he didn't even eat at his own house but came here constantly. He warned Kyle to stop coming over so often. Kyle had thought to himself that this was the only time he could be with Layla under the excuse of studying together, so he offered to pay for meals, and Bill reluctantly accepted. Bill had then given him the task of catching some food for dinner, but Kyle had failed miserably. Seeing him unable to catch a chicken, Bill had called him useless and good for nothing in the Ettman family. The word stung, and he had cried while Layla comforted him. Since that day, Kyle notices that Bill never calls him by name anymore, only good for nothing. Layla echoes the phrase playfully, confessing that she likes him because he is that kind of person. He questions if she's teasing him, but she quickly explains that she wants his hands to save people, not to shoot them. Kyle then asks if he should become a military doctor, wondering if he would earn a medal for that. She nods enthusiastically, saying it's an amazing job because it saves lives, and surely they would award a medal. Shortly, they see a car approaching and pause to let it pass. Kyle wonders if Dowager Herhart is inside, but Layla corrects him, saying it must be Lady Herhart because Dowager hates cars. He remarks that he doesn't understand why cars can combine beautiful design with geometric technology. She smiles, noting that he's talking about geometry again. He reaches into his bag for a geometry note he planned to show her, but realizes he left it at home. Layla decides to head home and tells him to make sure he comes in time for dinner and brings the note. Kyle asks if she's waiting for him or the note, and she teases that it's the note. He sighs, slightly disappointed, but promises he will get it and return quickly. She tells him to take his time, and they part ways. Shortly after, the Duke in the car decides to stop and take a walk, stepping out into the surroundings as the sunlight glints off the vehicle. The men in the car stand nearby, watching quietly. One of them remarks that since the Duke arrived a week earlier than scheduled, there were barely enough employees on standby. And now he suddenly wants to walk alone. The Duke shakes his head and declines to respond, stating simply that he will see them later at the mansion. The men leave and he takes off his cap, walking slowly through the trees. As he moves, his thoughts drift to his mother's words, reminding him that he should get engaged this summer. He considers her advice carefully and realizes she is right. It is their duty to marry at the proper time and ensure the birth of a successor. His grandmother has long believed that Lady Claudine would be the ideal match to become the next Duchess, and Matthias agrees. Claudine Van Brandt possesses an excellent lineage and impeccable qualifications. A meeting between them is planned for this summer. He reflects that a life like his has everything perfectly arranged, every detail set, every expectation mapped out. It leaves little room to desire or yearn for anything. Yet sometimes, he admits to himself, it feels slightly boring because everything is predetermined. In this life, he has been the perfect child, the perfect student, the perfect officer. Now it is time to marry the perfect girl and become the perfect father, ensuring the continuity of the Herhart lineage just as his grandfather and father did before him. Suddenly, a girl on horseback rides past him. She glances back, recognizes him, and immediately falls off the horse. His attention sharpens, and he wonders if she is the child the gardener took care of, if she still lives nearby. She scrambles to her feet, quickly apologizing as she gathers her scattered books. He calls her name, and she immediately responds with another apology. When she bends down to pick up her pen, he stops her gently, remarking that he is calling her. She raises her head, focusing on him, and replies that she is listening. Then, without another word, he walks away. She stands there, watching him disappear through the trees, puzzled by his behavior. She wonders if anyone else knows that he can act this way and why he chose to leave so abruptly. She hesitates, thinking she cannot simply walk past him without encountering him again. Meanwhile, he continues moving forward, quietly thinking to himself how much Layla has grown. She is no longer a child, but a young woman. Now the roses and the pride of the Herhart estate are in full bloom. Summer has arrived, and the Duke returns to the estate. The servants move busier than ever, bustling about with countless preparations for his arrival, setting up for various parties, gatherings, and ensuring every guest is properly attended to. In Berg, the second most prestigious aristocratic family after the Herharts is the Brandt family. The Count of Brandt is one of the guests who requires special attention, particularly because of his daughter, Claudine. Though the ostensible reason for the Brandts' visit is to spend the summer at a relative's estate, it has become widely known that Claudine's visit has a deeper purpose: the announcement of her impending engagement. The negotiation between the families is advanced, and the arrangement is friendly. The objective is clear. Neither family is trying to conceal the truth. At the moment, Claudine admires the greenhouse, commenting on its beauty and praising Lady Herhart. Lady Herhart smiles, explaining that she has tended it carefully for a long time and is looking forward to passing it on to a lady of the house who will truly appreciate its value. She then suggests that the Duke show Claudine the paradise of Arvis while she attends to discussions with the family. The Duke rises and offers his hand to Claudine, and as he does, his mind flickers to the memory of Layla picking up her pen. There is no trace of his younger cousin in Claudine now. She has grown into a perfect lady, poised and polished. He escorts her with respectful formality, as if meeting her for the very first time. At the table, both families note that although the two have not been intimately close, they have known each other long enough to understand one another. Their union is a political marriage, chosen because they are both nobles through and through. As they walk through the greenhouse, Claudine marvels at the birds. She asks about how they seem obedient to people, intrigued by the secret of their calm behavior. A man nearby explains that their wings are clipped. Claudine questions whether it hurts them. The man clarifies that only the feathers' tips are trimmed and offers to show her if she is curious. She asks for permission, and the Duke nods, granting it. The man brings a bird forward. The Duke inquires about its type, and the man responds that it is a songbird, known for singing beautifully. He notes that clipping the tips of its wings prevents it from flying too far and running away. Claudine asks if they truly cut them, and the man reassures her that it is done carefully and protects the birds from danger. The Duke picks up the bird, but the man takes it from him, explaining that it takes time for the birds to get used to having clipped wings. He then asks Claudine if she wishes to try taming it. She politely declines, turning to the Duke and suggesting that they return to the table. The Duke gently takes her hand, leads her back, and instructs the man to bring the bird to his room. Later that day, Layla brings a small bouquet of flowers to the mansion. A maid thanks her, and Layla casually mentions that it seems someone important is coming to the estate. The maid leans in, smiling, and informs her that the entire Brandt family is arriving soon. Layla's eyes widen when she hears that Claudine will be among them. When the maid adds that the visit is related to Claudine's engagement, Layla expresses genuine surprise, feeling a mix of curiosity and unease. Meanwhile, in the forest, Layla gathers ripe raspberries, glancing toward the estate in the distance. She had hoped the forest would remain quiet even after the Duke's return, but she senses that something important is about to happen. Thinking it might be better to avoid trouble, she decides to stop picking raspberries for the day, wanting to finish before the Duke occupies the forest and before Claudine begins calling her repeatedly. At the estate, the car is on standby for the Duke, who had been scheduled to meet with the director at noon. However, he chooses instead to take a walk along the Schulte River and through the Arvis forest. He loves the scenery there so much that he has converted the boathouse into a small cabin. His mother and grandmother rarely visit the riverside, leaving the cabin as his private world. Here he spends hours gazing at the river and forest, reading books, napping when bored, and above all, swimming, which he enjoys the most. As he relaxes, his mind drifts to the marriage negotiation between the Herhart and Brandt families. The process went exactly as planned, and the engagement is set for 1 year. By the end of the summer, it will be announced publicly, solidifying his position as Duke Herhart. He reflects that there is little reason to continue his military duties for much longer. After spending a year or two as an imperial guard, he plans to focus fully on his family's affairs once married. Meanwhile, high in a tree, Layla sits comfortably with a peach in one hand and a book in the other. One of the papers she was reading slips from her grasp and floats to the ground. As she peers at it, she catches sight of the Duke swimming in the river. She blinks several times, unable to believe what she sees, and prays silently that he doesn't notice her. But before she can react, he begins moving toward her. Heart-pounding, she quickly jumps from the tree and begins running through the underbrush. In the midst of her flight, she collides with Kyle, who is on his way searching for her. Concerned, he asks if something has happened in the woods, if she saw a wild animal. Layla, breathless, thinks that encountering a wild animal would have been far less alarming. Kyle urges her to calm down and asks about the raspberries she went to pick. She suddenly remembers them and exclaims, but in her panic, she shouts that she cannot go back for them and dashes away again. Meanwhile, the Duke, now dressed and walking along the riverbank, reaches the spot where her raspberries were growing. He frowns, wondering if she is trying to wipe out the raspberry species in Arvis. His thoughts drift back to the first day he saw her perched in a tree, her name echoing in his mind. He shakes his head, unable to believe that she still climbs trees purely for fun. Layla has finally gotten her eyeglasses, the result of selling raspberries just as she had planned. As she walks home, she marvels at the clear, crisp view around her, but a shadow lingers over her thoughts. She wonders why such awful memories keep surfacing on a beautiful day like this. Her mind drifts to the incident of seeing the Duke swimming in the river. Despite it being her favorite spot, she decides it's best to avoid the river until the Duke leaves, unwilling to risk another uncomfortable encounter. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls her name. She turns and sees the Duke walking with Claudine. She greets them politely with a soft, "Hello." Claudine glances at her thoughtfully, noticing how much Layla has grown into a young lady, and then asks about her, genuinely curious. Claudine explains that they are on their way to have tea at a hotel and invites Layla to join them. She glances at the Duke to see if he objects, but he remains silent, and Claudine gently insists that Layla come along. Layla hesitates briefly, thinking about the time she is supposed to meet Kyle downtown, but realizes she has a little time to spare. She decides to go with them. At the venue, she feels a strange tension. Claudine's invitation puts her in a delicate position, physically present but socially expected to act as though she is invisible. She has been in similar situations since she was 12. Yet, with her new glasses, she can see the Duke clearly, and his gaze makes her skin prickle with discomfort. She can't help but wonder if he isn't embarrassed about what happened the other day. During the gathering, both the Duke and Claudine casually mention inviting her to the upcoming party. Layla remains silent, unsure how to respond. After a moment, she politely asks for permission to leave so she can meet her friend, Kyle. Claudine smiles lightly and nods, saying it was nice meeting her. Layla bows slightly, bids them farewell, and hurries out, leaving the Duke watching her with an unreadable expression. When she meets Kyle, he immediately notices her bright expression and teases her lightly. "You achieved your goal," he says, and she frowns, telling him not to tease her. Then she notices him smiling and asks why he's been grinning for so long. Kyle leans closer and jokes that pushing up her glasses makes her eyes look like a little mouse's. Layla scolds him lightly, and he laughs it off, suggesting that they eat since he's hungry. Meanwhile, the Duke and Claudine are heading back to the estate. The road ahead is briefly blocked by a carriage, and through the window, the Duke catches sight of Layla walking with Kyle. His eyes narrow as he realizes that Kyle Etman, the son of the doctor, is the one she was hoping to meet earlier. He can hardly believe that she left him behind to meet Kyle, and the thought lingers in his mind as they continue along the road. The next morning, Claudine's mother watches Layla and Bill through the window. She wonders silently if Layla is still living there, under Mr. Bill's care. Claudine confirms it with a small smile and adds that Layla seems to be growing prettier by the day. Her mother frowns slightly, questioning if it's truly okay. In her mind, she knows the answer. There's no way it is. She remembers that Layla was always pretty, but now she has exceeded even her highest expectations. Robita's woman has a uniquely small frame, delicate features, green eyes that shine like jewels, and skin that is evenly white and flawless. That's why she suggested Claudine invite Layla to join them for tea. It would be interesting to see the Duke's reaction to such a young woman growing up on his estate. Yet, in her observations, the Duke lives up to expectations perfectly. Moderate interest, measured indifference, and impeccable dignity. Her mother worries, but she chooses not to dwell too long on the thought. Her mother remarks that Layla is still young and doesn't know men well. She begins to say that if it were her... But Claudine interrupts sharply, asking if her mother really wants her to worry about the men in front of Duke Herhart, of all the eligible men in the world. She adds that the most respected men often have had a mistress or two. Claudine muses silently that perhaps something new might happen. Perhaps the Duke could be swept up by his desire for a beautiful woman, just as her father and countless others have been. But she quickly reasons that a man who knows how to treat women with respect is usually harmless. It is the ignorant, reckless men who cause problems. The Duke, she decides, is definitely of the former kind. The head of a family who would never abandon his duties, even for a moment of lust. Claudine allows herself a private thought. She hopes nothing inappropriate happens, but if it does, she would be far more comfortable with a woman like Layla, a gentle, compliant girl she could easily handle, someone who would never threaten her position. Her mother blinks in surprise. She recalls her own weakness and the repeated miscarriages that left her barely able to give birth to Claudine. Her mother admits aloud that there is nothing good about having a girl like Layla near the Duke and wonders why she hadn't noticed her in previous visits, despite coming to the estate every year. She resolves that she will have to speak to the Herharts about it. Meanwhile, Claudine's thoughts turn inward. She worries that her father's love might cool while he is consumed with the frustration of not having a male heir. And she wonders when a young, beautiful woman might appear, bear a son, and claim her father's attention. She pities her mother for living in constant fear of this, and she tires of that pity. Claudine challenges herself mentally. What difference would it make if the Duke were interested in a humble, beautiful girl like Layla? She concludes it is lust, nothing more. Her mother calls her name sharply, insisting that Claudine doesn't understand love. Claudine, however, reminds herself of the promise she made long ago. Never to live like her mother, never to surrender to love that abandons her when passion fades. Instead, she will pursue a perfect marriage, one that safeguards her dignity. At another part of the estate, the Duke is holding a bright yellow bird, watching the world quietly. Through the window, he notices Layla moving about below. Meanwhile, Kyle is at Layla's home, but seeing no one there, he concludes she must be helping her uncle. He decides to wait, knowing she will likely return soon. As he waits, he studies her in his mind. Even with glasses, the future Mrs. Etman is breathtaking. Memories flood him. Her promise to buy him dessert because he bought her a sandwich, the time he reminded her to hold on tighter during a bike ride. He wants to act, to rush toward her, but he reminds himself to be patient, to honor the promise he made to wait for the right time. Yet every time she appears, his resolve melts. His heart pounds, heat rises across his body, and sometimes dreams leave him restless and guilty. More than anything, he fears that one day someone might suddenly take Layla away. The thought tempts him toward a reckless confession. Just then, he hears his name. He turns to see her approaching, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. Unable to contain himself, he bursts into laughter, teasing her that the hat is tacky. He jokes about where she got it from, convinced she didn't buy it herself. Layla and Bill look surprised, but she quickly explains that her uncle bought it as a gift for her. Kyle takes a second look and, after a moment of contemplation, admits that the hat is actually quite pretty. Tasteful, even. They go inside and soon food is served. Layla gestures toward the table and suggests that they eat. Kyle, feeling slightly awkward, can't believe they've prepared all this for him. He hesitates for a moment, then smiles politely and starts to eat, still bewildered by their hospitality. Afterward, he walks up to her on the balcony, the warm afternoon breeze brushing past them. He asks quietly if she's still upset with him. Moving closer, he apologizes sincerely, his voice soft but steady. Then he brings up the hat gift. "Why the hat?" he asks. Layla explains that she asked for it herself. Kyle notes that she has never asked him for anything before. She goes on to explain that her uncle had been upset when she bought her expensive glasses without telling him first. He had scolded her gently, asking if she wasn't trustworthy enough to consult him. Bill had never once been angry at her before, and despite her explanations, the disappointment in his eyes had made her heart ache. So, Layla had asked for a favor. A simple, pretty hat. Kyle had bought it, choosing it himself. Some people had teased her for wearing something tacky, but she considers it special. To her, flowers are the prettiest things in the world, and a hat decorated with so many flowers must be the most beautiful. She tells Kyle this, and he feels guilty, muttering that he feels like trash for ever making fun of the gift. Hearing this, Layla smiles warmly, knowing he understands. Kyle promises not to tease her about it again. Just then, Mr. Bill walks in and notices Kyle lingering. "You haven't gone home yet?" he asks, frowning playfully. Kyle laughs, shrugging lightly. Uncle Bill then tells Layla that he is heading into town for a while. Kyle, watching them, feels an inexplicable pang of jealousy. He knows deep down that anyone who loves Layla has to accept second place, because for her, the number one person will always be Uncle Bill. The two of them sit nearby, reading stories. Kyle worries that this is the only time they can talk, while Layla is absorbed in the next chapter. He peeks at her from the corner of his eyes, marveling at how pretty she looks when she reads with complete focus. Finally, he calls her, and she raises her head, momentarily distracted by something in front of the house. Kyle follows her gaze and sees the Duke approaching. Kyle steps aside, and Layla follows, still brushing crumbs from her mouth. Kyle greets the Duke politely. Layla responds softly, explaining that her uncle has gone downtown for a while. She asks if the Duke needs assistance with something. He mentions that she could help bring some roses. Layla, a little surprised, clarifies if he means picking roses from the garden. He instructs her to select them carefully and bring them to a separate building. Then he leaves. Seeing her about to leave, Kyle suggests that they run the errand together. She waves him off, saying it's not a big deal. He hesitates, questioning if he should wait there, but she insists he go home. She teases, asking if his mother would be angry if she found him lingering here again. As she walks toward the garden, she wonders why the Duke personally came to ask for help. She concludes that perhaps he was just passing by and decided to stop. Kyle lingers nearby, calling out softly, and she waves back at him with a smile. Once she delivers the roses to the Duke, he inspects them and tells her to bring more, but in a blustery color this time. Layla freezes for a moment, surprised by his unusual specificity. The Duke keeps requesting more flowers, and Layla goes out again, carrying another batch. She notices that he is in his annex by the river, a private space that guests rarely enter and even some servants face restrictions to access. She wonders if sending her here to deliver flowers is meant for Miss Claudine, who will soon be engaged to him. Perhaps that's why he wants bright-colored roses, ones that would match Claudine's taste. But the constant back and forth makes her rethink the Duke's reputation. How can someone who torments another in the middle of a scorching summer day be called a good person? She scolds herself inwardly and admits she absolutely hates him. On her way back, she encounters a man and a lady who commend her for her hard work. Curious, she asks where they are headed, and they respond that they are returning to their mansion. They bid her goodbye, which confirms that the Duke is alone in the annex. Anxiety creeps in. She steps inside, wondering if he's asleep, debating whether to wait or leave. Suddenly, he opens his eyes. She announces that she's brought the flowers and hesitantly asks if she has to fetch more. He tilts his head and asks if she will do it if he requests it. She replies that she will if she made a mistake, but pleads that he tell her the color he wants this time. Her inner thoughts escape aloud, and she is momentarily embarrassed. He merely responds that it's fine and gestures for her to sit. She thinks she has matched the colors he wants, but just as she is about to decline sitting, he calls her name and reminds her that putting the flowers in the vase is part of her job. Layla admits her flower arranging skills aren't great. He asks if he should do it himself, and she reluctantly sits down. As he writes, he glances at her. Looking at her reminds him of the gold-colored canary in his bedroom, the bird that once flailed and screamed when moved, but gradually became tame over time, following him everywhere. Now, it jumps onto his hand willingly, rubs its body, licks its eyes, and sings in soft, affectionate tones. He wonders quietly to himself, what about her? Layla informs him that she's finished and nervously asks if he likes it. He inspects the arrangement and confirms that it's poor. She apologizes, offering to bring a skilled maid next time. He tells her to sit and eat, but notices her perplexed expression. He wonders if she dislikes the reward for her work. His thoughts drift to a memory of her with Kyle. How she had eaten well and smiled like sunshine. He had wanted to give her a reward worthy of her level if she liked something like that. She thanks him, then says that she will head back if there's nothing else he needs her to do. He tilts his head and questions whether her words are merely polite or if she would do more if he requested it. Layla sits down and begins to eat, though she already feels full from lunch and dessert. She wonders why her body is sweating so much after running through the garden and doubts she will be able to swallow anything. Her mind drifts, questioning whether the food is meant as a simple gift or a punishment for the poor flower arrangement she made. The Duke removes her hat, reminding her that ladies shouldn't wear hats indoors. Her chest tightens as she recalls the way he had laughed so leisurely the last time she was in an uncomfortable situation, and how easily he orders her around as if she were nothing. She refuses to let the hat her uncle bought become another object for him to tease her. She rises, determined to leave, silently pleading that he return her hat. He insists that she should finish eating before taking it, but she refuses, feeling her patience fray. He lifts the hat just out of her reach, and her hands stretch toward it helplessly. Fear flares as memories of being pushed into a river by her cousin's surface, making her hesitate. He throws the hat through the open window, and it lands on the river below. Her heart leaps, but she clutches her glasses tightly, unwilling to risk losing them. She steps cautiously into the shallow water beneath the building, which deepens as she moves further out, reaching up to her height. Every step reminds her of past fears, yet she stretches desperately for the hat. Her arms strain, but the hat refuses to come free. The Duke approaches the edge, observing silently. He notes to himself that she cannot follow a simple instruction. Eat, and the hat would be returned when she is ready to leave. He wonders why she made such a fuss over a small thing. Now she is almost drowning, and without hesitation, he jumps into the water to rescue her. She sits up, clutching the hat tightly, her chest heaving. He watches her, curious about what the hat means to her, while she wonders why he is laughing in a situation like this. He winks and she feels a sudden urge to splash water at him, but he is already soaking wet. Still, she flicks water from her skirt toward him. He wipes his face, noting that she doesn't seem to be having much fun. Then, he expects her gratitude, leaving her startled. She reflects that this wouldn't have happened if he hadn't thrown her hat into the river, but he counters silently, thinking it wouldn't have happened if she had simply eaten her sandwich and considering how reckless it was for her to jump in without knowing how to swim. She endures, reminding herself that he is the Lord of Arvis, and she cannot risk causing any trouble for Uncle Bill. She bows, offering her thanks. He insists she repeat it more ladylike. She apologizes silently for not being a proper lady like others, but he presses her to try harder when she is in his presence. She stares at him for a moment, tightens her hat, bows again, and thanks him. Then she announces her departure, deciding within herself that she will no longer argue or allow him to treat her as a joke. She runs back home, fighting back tears, remembering the same desperate rush of the time she had fled clutching a gold coin. Her thoughts drift back to the day she had seen the Duke and Lady Claudine walking together in the forest, a scene reminiscent of a fairy tale, a beautiful lady accompanied by a handsome gentleman. She had stopped to watch, noting the gentle wind that blew Claudine's hat away, and how the Duke had stepped off the trail to return it, a gesture she had found elegant. Earlier, he had done something similar for her, but the feeling had been entirely different, colored by a cold expression as if the act held no meaning. Today, her heart aches more than usual, and exhaustion weighs on her. She kicks a piece of dried fruit along the path in frustration, watching it roll away. Her vision blurs, and she realizes she has forgotten her glasses at the Duke's mansion. Meanwhile, he gazes at the glasses. As evening approaches, the breeze floating through the annex becomes cooler. The Duke notes that Layla's eyesight must have been quite poor, and he wonders if it is the reason she always frowns slightly. A memory surfaces of the child who had gazed at him with a furrowed brow, shabby and unimpressive. He stands and begins to toss and catch the eyeglasses in his hands, noting how her remarkable sparkling green eyes once shone with life and how she emanated a fresh, sweet fragrance. He whispers her name softly, as if it carries the warmth of midsummer. Then he places the glasses into a drawer, and the image of those green eyes slowly fades. In the evening, the Duke embarks on a journey in his car, leaving the estate behind. At another end, Layla sits with her uncle. He reassures her that there is no need to worry about the glasses, explaining that they can simply buy new ones if they cannot be found. She accepts the words quietly, deciding that it is best not to mention that the Duke had thrown her hat into the river, causing her to forget the glasses, knowing it would only worry him unnecessarily. She holds on to the thought that the glasses must still be somewhere and resolves to retrieve them at dawn. At first light, she returns to the Duke's annex, searching carefully, but the glasses are nowhere to be found. A crow caws from a nearby branch, and she wonders if it has taken them. Meanwhile, Kyle is at home speaking to Phoebe, the rock pigeon trained by Layla's indomitable will. The pigeon has spent 2 years delivering messages faithfully. Kyle takes a letter from it, expressing gratitude for its hard work and offering a small reward meal. The letter explains that Layla lost her glasses, so she probably cannot make their library appointment today, and she apologizes. Kyle frowns at the thought, surprised that she could misplace them. He hurries out, mounting his bicycle, while his mother watches with concern. She questions why he is leaving instead of studying. He explains that he is heading to the library. She probes further, noting Layla's name and wonders how long he will continue these childhood friend routines during such a critical time. He pushes the worry aside, cycling swiftly toward Layla's place. Arriving, he asks if she has found the glasses. She shakes her head. He immediately suggests going into town together so he can buy her a new pair. For a moment, he realizes that he has let his emotions run ahead, forgetting who Layla is. But she declines. The determination in her eyes is unmistakable. No matter what anyone says, she will not back down. Later, Layla goes with Kyle into the forest searching for her glasses. As she climbs a tree, a flock of crows suddenly takes flight, scattering to the next grove. She pauses to question Kyle if he shouldn't go home, but he shakes his head, determined to stay with her. Suddenly, the Duke's car approaches along the forest path. The men in the vehicle glance at the two children, remarking to themselves about the scattered crows, joking that one of them must have taken Layla's glasses. The Duke notes to himself that all sorts of rumors surely circulate in the servants' world, yet he knows there is no way she doesn't remember leaving the glasses on the deck herself. Now, searching among the trees and nests, she appears oblivious to the truth, and he wonders if she simply wishes not to remember. As the car passes, she catches sight of the Duke and his gaze unsettles her, cold and menacing. A few days later, Layla ventures even deeper into the forest, with Kyle gladly accompanying her. Despite her seemingly impossible efforts, the Duke pretends not to notice her, finding amusement in watching the wretched birds build their nests. Yet, as days pass, his patience for the children's antics begins to wane. He decides to spare some time from his busy schedule and heads to the annex. A servant informs him that Marquis Lindman is expected to arrive by noon, earlier than anticipated. The servant explains that Madame has instructed special attention for the luncheon and pleads for the Duke to attend if he has no prior obligations. He nods in acknowledgement, and the servant leaves. Shortly after, Layla approaches the annex and rings the bell, apologetic for coming unannounced. She notices immediately that the Duke's demeanor has changed compared to the day he teased her with the hat. He maintains his composure even while working, handling the telephone and documents with calm precision. Layla observes the effortless way he remains composed and relaxed, smiling without losing his steady gaze, his posture straight as if nothing could unsettle him. Though she understands why the Duke is admired and called perfect, the thought that he could somehow be involved in the disappearance of her glasses feels almost pathetic. She resolves that returning to ask about it is useless and decides instead to continue her search among the nests she hasn't explored yet. As she turns to leave, the Duke calls her to wait, then instructs her to ask a question. She mentions the glasses she left on the deck the day she jumped into the water, wondering if he might have seen them. He responds vaguely, leaving the possibility open that he may not have seen them, or that he may have hidden them. She questions if he really would hide them, but concludes that such an action would be too cruel, far beyond what she thinks he is capable of. That night in the master suite, a guy notes that he didn't expect Lady Claudine to arrange a private meeting for everyone in such a secluded place. He guesses that the Duke becomes unusually generous when it comes to his fiancée. Claudine notices his tone and gestures for him to stop using nicknames, though others quietly support his remark. The guy reasons that it was obvious she's destined to become the Duke's wife, and he concludes that everyone simply got excited and drank too much. He apologizes for speaking out of turn. At the edge of the room, he spots a bird cage and is surprised by its presence. The bird flies to the Duke, who seems intent on taking care of it. He wonders aloud why the Duke would bother breeding birds and shooting at them, feeling sympathy for the creature because it cannot understand the true nature of its master. He contemplates whether to laugh at the bird's foolish trust or pity it instead. He wonders what Claudine thinks, and she observes that both reactions would suit the situation. She recognizes the bird and questions if it has been named, suggesting one if the Duke hasn't given it one. The Duke dismisses the idea, noting that a bird is just a bird. The guy feels increasingly sorry for the creature, realizing it has entrusted itself to a hunter who won't even give it a name. Earlier, while Layla discusses her missing glasses with the Duke, a servant enters to deliver an important telegram. The Duke gestures, signaling that he wants her to leave, and Layla understands that she must depart without learning anything about her glasses. Still, she knows it is not the crows, but the Duke who has taken them. She wonders why and if he has some fascination with shiny things like crows. She considers whether she will have to visit him repeatedly until he returns the glasses, though she doubts he will do so willingly. That evening happens to coincide with a dinner party at the Duke's estate. Guests are present and celebrating late into the night, leaving the back building largely unvisited. Layla resolves to retrieve her glasses while the moonlight provides enough illumination for her to sneak around. At the party, the Duke keeps the bird nearby, but his thoughts drift to Layla. He decides to check the back building, confident that she will understand the meaning behind his words. He knows her well enough to predict that a girl who spent days searching through crow nests for her glasses will not give up easily, and that persistence is exactly how she will fall into his carefully laid trap. He lies down in the annex, holding her glasses in his hands, considering how she will react when she discovers them. He remains calm and patient. Suddenly, a soft noise breaks the quiet of the annex. Layla has begun sneaking in through the window. The Duke left the front door slightly open, making entry easier for her, yet Layla chose to climb in through the window. It is not beyond his expectations, but he notes to himself that she always manages to surprise him. She hesitates in the dim moonlight, unable to see clearly, then begins searching through his drawers. The Duke observes calmly, unshaken by her intrusion. After rifling through the drawers, she wonders where her glasses could be. The Duke notes to himself that she is no longer a child and realizes he can accept this now, the reason he set the pitiful trap and waited for her to take it. He questions whether she is searching for the glasses he is holding. She freezes in surprise, caught between shock and the realization that he's there, wondering how to explain herself. She apologizes, insisting she did not know he would be present. He questions whether his absence would have given her permission to enter and whether she considers herself a thief. As she struggles to explain, she sees the glasses in his hands. Relief and embarrassment flood her at once. She explains that she only wanted to reclaim what was hers, but the Duke notes that her attempts at courage are futile. She still trembles pathetically. He begins to leave through the door, and she fears he might throw her glasses into the river as he did with her hat. She rushes after him, pleading and explaining that she saved for a long time to buy them. The moon shines bright, illuminating her nightwear, and she immediately wraps her arms around herself and bends down, attempting modesty. He considers whether she is being overly dramatic, recalling that she has seen every corner of his body before. She reminds herself that it had been out of necessity, not desire. He questions whether she wants him to see her, but she forces herself to remain calm, aware that he could accuse her of theft at any moment. She continues to plead for forgiveness, and he reflects on her sudden ladylike demeanor. She insists that regardless of her behavior, he remains a gentleman. He muses that perhaps he is not, but she disagrees, insisting he is the greatest gentleman of Kalsvar. He cannot believe the praise, and she explains that everyone around him thinks the same, leaving her almost certain of her assessment. She continues to plead for her glasses, emphasizing how hard it had been to obtain them and how precious they are. He finally places the glasses on her face, touches her lightly as he studies her, and moves closer. He recognizes the emotion stirring within himself now, a craving for Layla, the woman who grew up so beautifully. But he also recognizes the danger it represents. The intensity of this feeling is fleeting, and he questions whether it is worth staining his life to satisfy it. He concludes that she is not worth it and that indulging this craving serves no purpose. With that, he allows her to leave. She bows and turns to walk through the forest, her heart racing. As she washes her face with cool water, her memory feels hazy, but certain details remain vivid. The deep, calm blue eyes that seemed ready to swallow her whole, the heat of his hands, the texture of his fingers intruding into her mouth, the quiver of her breath beneath his touch, and the overwhelming embarrassment that followed. Now staring at her glasses on the table, she resolves never to see him again. Layla, who is usually always in the garden helping Mr. Bill, has been nowhere to be seen for several days. A servant informs the Duke that all preparations for the hunting session are complete. Meanwhile, at Layla's place, Kyle offers to help with the laundry, and she quietly appreciates his presence. He suggests going for a walk afterward to her favorite tree near the river, but she declines, noting that they can go next time because chores still need her attention. The last 10 days pass with careful avoidance. She stays away from the river entirely, doing her best not to run into the Duke. Kyle notices the change, wondering if something is wrong and why she is staying home more than usual. He expects that she would wander more now that she has found her glasses. He also wonders why she isn't wearing them, and she explains that she only uses them for reading, afraid of losing them again. Layla only goes to the garden when the Duke has left the grounds, and she runs out immediately whenever he returns, moving as if escaping danger. She resolves to continue living like this if it means avoiding him until the end of summer. Suddenly, they see men on horses, and Kyle notes that they must be going hunting. Layla raises her head and catches sight of the Duke. She spreads a cloth to shield her view, thinking that when summer ends and autumn arrives, the Duke will return to the capital after becoming engaged to Lady Claudine. If she can endure only until the end of the season, perhaps Arvis will know peace again. The riders pass. Kyle questions if she is feeling unwell and if she wants to go to his house, but she insists she will be finished with her tasks by evening. She suggests going inside briefly, but he doubts that she is truly okay. She thinks that Arvis Forest will finally feel peaceful once the Duke is gone, and the confusing feelings tied to him will vanish. Still, she plans to go into the forest that evening to attend to the birds that fall after the hunting. In the forest, the Duke decides to stay a bit longer, ordering his men to take the guests back. At sunset, he continues hunting birds, enjoying the act as usual. Yet, a subtle emptiness lingers. The reason feels inadequate. The birds fly desperately, seeking freedom, reminding him that the thrill is never complete. Layla moves carefully through the forest, noticing far more fallen birds than usual, scattered almost every few steps. Her heart tightens at the cruelty of the sport. Almost completing her task, she unexpectedly walks into the Duke. He mutters to himself that she keeps coming. He greets her and she notices him standing there, calm and composed, as if he had stayed back on purpose, anticipating her arrival to tend to the birds. Her eyes catch a red thread tied to the plover chicks that hatched along the river last year. A pang of disbelief runs through her. How could the life of a bird that had returned from distant lands to survive the winter end like this? She feels the weight of it, a strange mixture of sorrow and helplessness. The Duke instructs her to continue, to complete her task. She moves through the forest carefully, picking up fallen birds and attending to the nests as best as she can. He asks about the thread, why she tied it, and she explains that she wanted to see whether the birds that had left would come back. She adds that she never wished to reunite with the bird under such circumstances. He remarks on the condemnation in her expression, questioning what the issue is. These are his lands, his hunting grounds, his birds. She hesitates, then reflects that to the birds, this forest is not his but their home, the place where they were born and raised. He asks why he should care for the feelings of mere birds. She acknowledges it silently, but insists that such cruelty is unnecessary, that respect for life, however small, should exist. A determination rises within her, and she reminds herself that she needs more courage now. He questions whether she wants this to be a kind hunt, and she quickly apologizes for overstepping. He wonders why she cares so much for the birds, but she senses that her reasoning would not interest him. She tells herself that she will leave, feeling a mix of frustration and weariness, and starts to turn away. Before she can step too far, he shoots at another bird, reminding her that her task is not yet finished. She pleads for guidance, asking what she has done wrong, wondering if this is a punishment. He observes calmly, noting that he has never punished her. He does his job, and she does hers. He questions again why she is so fond of birds. Her mind drifts to the memory of her mother leaving her, and she realizes that birds have always been her companions. From her earliest days, they are everywhere, hovering nearby as she wanders, leaving when seasons change, returning if she waits patiently. That is why she loves them, why she feels their absence so keenly. She wonders if he intends to hunt in this manner again, and he replies simply, if needed. He glances at his watch, then moves forward, stating his desire for everything in his world to be exactly as it should, orderly and proper, with no one hiding, no one running. Confusion creeps over her as she asks what he means by that. He tells her to stay in her place, leaving the question unelaborated. She struggles to understand what place he means, but he walks away, leaving her with the thought that she must consider it carefully. If she finds the answer, perhaps he might grant her a kind hunt. The Duke has no particular expectations for Layla. All he wants is for her to stay in her place. An orphan living in his forest, a curious student who, after graduation, will become a teacher. Always exactly where she is meant to be, quietly occupying the space assigned to her. Just as everything in his world follows order, so too should she. The Duke himself is born into a world governed by perfect order, and he grows to become its master. In his world, everything is simple and clear. Living up to the roles assigned to him is second nature. To his grandmother and mother, he is the proud heir. To his servants, a generous master. on the battlefield a skilled soldier, to the board members a competent businessman. He has always been something to someone and willingly fulfills the expectations that accompany it. Sometimes it is effortless, almost boring, but it is life as it should be. That is the world the Duke knows, the world he has seen, heard, and learned. But the lowly orphan who lives in his forest is different. She is nothing. There is no place in a Duke's life for a presence that serves no purpose, and yet, somehow, owning something that is nothing feels strangely satisfying. It is new, unsettling, yet oddly pleasant. Her emotions, so unlike the measured, predictable feelings of everyone else, amuse him. And above all, her tears. He finds himself captivated by them. A woman who weeps with such quiet beauty, enough to make him want to witness it again. Later, he returns to the mansion, where Lady Claudine greets him. She asks if he enjoyed his walk and mentions that she has been waiting for him. She compliments the hunt, noting how impressive it was and how everyone has been talking about it. He suggests she join them on the next hunt. She politely declines, admitting that seeing blood up close might make her faint. Then she speaks of hosting a gathering at Arvis soon, proposing it as a sort of trial. Once married, she will be welcoming the guests herself, and her mother suggested she practice in advance. She wishes to invite everyone she wants, and she questions if he agrees. He accepts. As the short summer night begins to wane, the Duke thinks that perhaps a gentler hunt next time would not be so bad. In the rose garden, Layla resumes her place beside her uncle, helping as she always does. She carries flowers to the ladies, and Claudine instructs her to arrange them. When Layla asks to leave, Claudine requests a small bundle of red roses. Layla accepts and departs. A lady sitting nearby whispers that Layla's politeness feels almost like disrespect, and another agrees, noting the strange look in her eyes, as if she does not know her place. Claudine, however, chides them gently, explaining that Layla has had a hard life. She may have flaws, but perhaps a little kindness would serve her better than harsh judgment. The ladies murmur to themselves, considering Claudine too lenient. They think such girls should be properly taught before they assume any place of importance in society. Claudine reflects quietly that she cannot blame the ladies entirely. Even she cannot ignore the impression Layla leaves. A quiet obedience born not of loyalty, but detachment. While noble young ladies clamor for her attention, Layla remains unmoved, unaffected by Claudine's attempts to engage her. She endures, silent and self-contained, as if life is something to bear rather than enjoy. And yet, it is this very orphan, Layla, who stirs curiosity and intrigue in everyone around her. Soon, Layla returns with the requested red roses, asking if they are sufficient. Claudine thanks her and decides to give her a gift today, a poor orphan with the pride of a princess, still moved by the weight of a single gold coin. She offers Layla an invitation, a memory she hopes will endure. The two ladies beside her react with surprise. Layla hesitates, questioning why she has received such a gift. Claudine explains that it is a graduation gift, something to mark a memory she will carry with her. Layla wants to decline, but Claudine insists, her tone firm yet kind, leaving no room for refusal. The Duke walks through the town on an important duty, his eyes catching a glimpse of a beautiful necklace showcased behind glass. It gleams in the sunlight, delicate and exquisite, but he moves on without hesitation, his mind already occupied with the tasks of the day. At Bill's place, the mood is lively and anxious. A maid vents her frustration, upset at the ways of nobles she cannot comprehend. Rumors are spreading that Layla is to attend the Duchess's party, and talk circulates that Claudine treats Layla like her little pet. Bill frowns at the description, feeling it diminishes her, yet listens as the maid continues. She recalls how Claudine, since childhood, called on Layla whenever boredom struck, and now this invitation to a gathering of noble ladies adds to the weight of expectation. The act may be called kindness, but for someone like Layla, it could feel intimidating. Bill reflects quietly, knowing Layla is not easily intimidated. She only needs to show herself briefly, make an appearance, and leave without incident. The maid considers him indifferent and comments on how long he has been raising her, suggesting he should understand better by now. Bill admits that he is still deciding where to guide her next, still weighing possibilities and options. The maid murmurs that his thoughts seem endless, that even when Layla marries, bears children, and he eventually passes, he will remain caught in this constant contemplation. She finally proposes that they buy Layla a beautiful dress, a surprise that will honor her presence at the party. Bill is taken aback, knowing she would refuse if he offered it directly, unwilling to be indebted. The maid reassures him she will give it to Layla herself. She stretches out her hand and Bill produces a bag filled with money, which she notes with mild surprise. She teases that he should keep his funds in a bank rather than the old bag, but he insists the cabin in Arvis is far safer. Both know that if Layla discovered this, she would be furious, but the maid promises to keep it secret until the day of the party. As she counts and organizes the money, she requests additional funds, noting that Layla will need more than just a dress to face such a gathering. Bill obliges, adding enough for whatever might be necessary, everything required to make her presence remarkable. The maid wonders at his sudden generosity, but decides it is well-directed, imagining Layla appearing so radiant that she might unsettle the noble ladies with her poise and grace. Layla arrives just then, stepping into the cabin and taking note of her surroundings. Both Bill and the maid quickly hide the bag and money. She is surprised to see Mona, the maid, who has brought a small selection of snacks. Layla considers staying for a moment to share a quick meal, but Mona declines, insisting she must leave. Bill asks quietly what her plan is for the invitation, and Layla resolves simply to make a brief appearance and leave, mentioning that she will attend with Kyle since Dr. Ettman is also present. Bill feels a quiet satisfaction knowing the young man is finally earning his keep. He inquires if she needs anything else, perhaps a dress, but she declines, intending only to pop in for a short time. Bill cannot help but wonder at her choice, realizing the more significant the event, the more carefully one should be dressed, yet she persists in her modesty. Her laughter is light, a soft defiance, as she insists that her school uniform will suffice and that she does not wish to be a burden. Bill recognizes the quiet struggle in her, the way she tries to impose self-restraint, and though he wishes he could comfort her, he cannot find the words. Madame Mona had been right about Layla all along. Layla, sensing his concern, gently holds his hand, reassuring him that she is fine. He considers her frail yet powerful in her quiet resolve, and wonders in a fleeting thought who is really comforting whom. Night falls, and Layla wakes abruptly from another vivid nightmare. She is transported back to her childhood, wandering from one relative's home to another, enduring bullying, beatings, and the constant fear of abandonment. In those days, the only way to survive was to work without pause, to move quietly and quickly, to remain as invisible as possible. Crying is never an option. She practices smiling even as tears threaten to spill, forcing brightness over sorrow because the world has no place for a crying orphan. Finally, she crosses the border alone into Berg, clutching the last hope she has, knowing that failure could lead her straight to an orphanage. She forces a smile that day, remembers meeting Uncle Bill's kind, sympathetic eyes, and feels the warmth of a family. Again, she can finally call her own. Those moments are etched permanently in her memory. Layla opens her window to the cool, fresh breeze of early morning. The Duchess's party awaits her that night. Nervousness lingers, but is tempered by resolve. She intends to attend bravely and leave quickly, avoiding any unnecessary attention. As she prepares breakfast, she thinks quietly about Lady Claudine, imagining that she could never understand this life shaped by survival and fear. Bill notices her early rising and greets her warmly. For him, for this small, safe cabin filled with care and comfort, she is willing to do anything. As the servant prepares the Duke for the party, he notes that everything has gone smoothly, adding that someone departed about an hour ago, so the items should have been delivered by now. The Duke acknowledges the work with a quiet nod of thanks, his mind already turning over other matters. The news that Layla has been invited to the party reaches him through his mother. He hears the praise of Claudine's kindness and generosity, and though the idea strikes him as absurd, he does not oppose it. He imagines the spectacle if he stays silent. Claudine will likely arrange for Layla to appear in front of the assembled nobles, dressed modestly, and shower her with pity and sympathy. Humbling that irritating girl's pride would surely give Claudine satisfaction, but the Duke decides that pleasure should remain his alone. He does not know how to share what is his, and the thought of letting anyone else take that amusement irks him. Meanwhile, the gifts the chef prepared on behalf of Bill are moved to the Duke's chamber by Hessen, while the replacement items are transformed into Bill's gift and delivered to the cabin. Hessen asks what to do with the remaining items. The Duke simply instructs them to be disposed of, indifferent to their fate. At the other end, Layla examines the gifts with a mix of awe and disbelief, questioning silently how much her uncle must have spent. Bill notes to himself that he expected Madame Mona to put some thought into it, but this is far beyond what he anticipated. Even to his untrained eyes, the clothing, shoes, gloves, and the boutique employee delivering them personally all indicate a high price. The necklace alone draws his attention, and he wonders if Mona charged him for that as well. Yet, he reminds himself that he has spent generously enough. What matters most is that Layla can attend the party without feeling out of place. He assures himself that handling it personally removes any need for her to worry, though he regrets her habit of fretting over every detail. Layla regards the ensemble thoughtfully, accepting that it is far more than she expected. Bill notes the effort is only for a single day, and that she intends only to make a brief appearance before returning. He is surprised at her modesty and concern, and internally reminds himself that she never likes to be a burden. While these gifts appear extravagant, he knows they are small in comparison to what he would love to give her if circumstances allowed. Still, he cannot resist testing her resolve. He considers what he would do if she refuses. He could discard the items entirely, and she would never see them again. A pang of regret hits immediately as he realizes he may have spoken too harshly. Someone calls him, and he turns to see Kyle approaching. Bill reflects that he always thought the gluttonous young man would remain a child forever, yet now, dressed properly, Kyle carries himself like a gentleman. Kyle questions why Bill is outside and where Layla might be. Bill responds with his usual ambiguity, and Kyle notes that the party is about to begin. Moments later, Layla emerges, and both men are taken aback by her appearance. Bill, regaining composure, instructs Kyle to stay focused. Today, he will stand in for him and must take responsibility for protecting Layla. Kyle nods, silently promising to look after her. Layla moves closer to Kyle, quietly wondering if she appears strange, noting that this kind of outfit is unfamiliar. Kyle reassures her and then gently encourages her to move forward. She hesitates, but he insists with a quiet firmness appropriate for the occasion, reminding her to see him as her companion for the evening, not just a friend. She accepts, resolving to do her best, and shares a brief, affectionate farewell with her uncle as they leave together. Bill watches them go, hoping she will not worry, hoping that tonight she might simply enjoy herself. Once inside the grand hall, Layla pauses again, seeking reassurance about her appearance. Kyle confirms her poise, encouraging her to trust him and follow his lead. She does, willing to set aside her insecurities. From afar, the Duke observes her. The Duke watches Layla from a distance, and he quietly studies the way she carries herself. Her calm posture alone tells him that Hessen has handled everything perfectly as a butler. Even without fancy makeup and with an outfit that looks a bit simple and loosely put together, she still has an effortless beauty that draws attention. His gaze settles on the emerald necklace around her neck, and he remembers spotting that same necklace earlier when he was heading toward the meeting point. Their eyes meet for a moment before she quickly looks away. Even while he continues greeting familiar faces in the room, a part of his attention keeps drifting back to Layla, as if his senses naturally follow her presence. Before long, Claudine brings Layla over to introduce her to a group of ladies. She explains that Layla is a child raised by a gardener at Arvis, and that the Duke and Duchess allowed her adoption when she was found wandering alone as an orphan. The ladies react with quiet surprise. Claudine continues, saying that Layla is close to graduating and will soon become a teacher. The ladies comment that it sounds wonderful and add that Claudine's warm demeanor must be one of the reasons the Herhart family values her so highly. The conversation shifts to her engagement, and Claudine gently notes that it isn't official yet. The Duke approaches the group, and Claudine introduces him to her friends, including Layla. She mentions that Layla looks different today and she almost didn't recognize her. Layla greets the Duke politely. Claudine wonders how Layla manages to stay calm even when people subtly insult her, yet blushes and becomes flustered in front of the Duke. She remembers her mom saying it isn't wise to keep a girl like Layla near Duke Matthias. Her thoughts drift back to the day everyone went hunting in the forest. She still remembers the uneasy feeling she had when the Duke sent everyone back and went for a quiet walk alone, only returning to the manor after sunset. That memory continues to trouble her a little. Even now at the party, she can't help wondering how Layla managed to prepare such a lovely outfit. The necklace especially stands out. It is far too beautiful for her to assume it's fake. Kyle soon arrives and asks politely if he can take Layla ahead to introduce her to his friends. Claudine briefly wonders if Kyle is the one responsible for turning Layla into a princess-like figure tonight, but she gives her permission, and he thanks her before leaving with Layla. As they step away, Claudine compliments Layla's appearance and the necklace, and Layla responds with a soft, "Thank you." Outside the busy hall, Layla also thanks Kyle. He asks why she is so patient, noting that people treated her like an object and openly insulted her. He wants to understand why she endured it. Layla explains that it's fine. She says the words weren't wrong. She is an orphan, she owes Uncle Bill, and she will become a teacher. She adds that she doesn't take those remarks to heart because humans naturally have different sides. She encourages Kyle to go, since many people are waiting to meet him, including his mom. Kyle insists that he came today to be her partner, so he plans to stay with her. Right then, his mom appears and asks what he's doing there, saying she has been looking for him. She tells him that many people want to meet him. Kyle answers that they actually want to meet his dad. His mom asks if he is ignoring her and adds that Lord Norma wants to see him. Layla gently tells him to listen to his mom. Kyle asks what she will do, and she reassures him that she will wait right there. His mom thanks Layla for understanding. As he leaves, he tells her he will be back soon, so she should wait for him. Now alone, Layla quietly thinks that her part for the evening is done. All she has to do now is stay still and wait for Kyle to return. Layla recalls the moment when Uncle Bill tried to convince her that the dress and accessories were cheap, but she can't agree. To her eyes, they are far too beautiful to be fake. She wonders how imitation jewels can look so stunning and decides that's probably why Lady Claudine complimented them. Still, she suspects it wasn't a real compliment. Maybe a hint of scorn or pity delivered in a polite way. But none of it bothers her. After all, they are from Uncle Bill, and that's what matters most. Soon she spots the Duke and Lady Claudine walking out of the hall. They are talking quietly. Claudine mentions that she likes summer because the nights are beautiful, but the Duke seems indifferent, which surprises Layla. She always assumed he liked summer, yet she doesn't judge him for it. In fact, she quietly admires his composure, the way he remains unaffected by small, silly things. It strikes her as noble and elegant. The Duke, noticing her approval, feels pleased. Claudine steps closer to the Duke and asks for a kiss, teasing whether he thinks they at least need a hint of passion. He admits she has a point. As he places a hand gently on her neck, Layla, who isn't far, recalls the moment the Duke touched her own face. The Duke leans in and kisses Claudine, and as he does, his gaze drifts toward Layla. She remembers her brief moments with him before deciding to quietly leave. The Duke stops and asks if they should continue, and Claudine confidently remarks that they would make a good couple. Meanwhile, Layla checks her leg and notices a small injury. She thinks about going home, but remembers that she promised Kyle she would wait for him to return. Deciding to be patient a little longer, she heads to the garden. She slips off her shoes and sits down. Her mind keeps turning to the Duke and Claudine's kiss. She wonders why they acted so boldly when someone else was so near. In the end, she shrugs it off, concluding that they probably see servants as nothing more than furniture anyway. Back in the party hall, Lady Her Grace reflects on her household's prestige. She notes that the Ettman family and the House of Arndt are well matched, and if the families develop a close relationship, it would be mutually beneficial. Kyle's mother, observing quietly, thinks about Baron Arndt's daughter, who happens to be the same age as Kyle. Marriage will probably be on her mind soon, and the opportunity seems perfect. Yet she notices Kyle is still completely focused on the orphan Layla. She sighs inwardly and reminds herself that guiding her son is her responsibility. She decides that the introduction to the Arndt family should happen immediately. The Duke, who has been watching from a distance, notices his grandmother playing the matchmaker. He thinks to himself that even though the Ettmans do not hold titles, they are wealthier than the Arndts, and they have a strong reputation. A marriage between the families could make sense, despite differences in social standing. Shortly after, Kyle tells his mom he is leaving, but she insists he stay, noting that everything being arranged is for his benefit. It would be rude for him to leave now. Kyle wants to run off, but he can't bring himself to disappoint his mother. The Duke reflects silently. It's obvious how Kyle's first love will end. Kyle Ettman, loyal and dutiful, will never let go of his role as a well-mannered son. With his ambitious mother and his obedience, Layla will be left behind, cast aside quietly, here in this forest where she belongs. So he walks up to her in the garden. The Duke sees Layla resting quietly. He squats beside her, gently picking up her shoes. She opens her eyes and blinks a few times, unsure if she's dreaming. For a brief moment, everything seems surreal. Him there, holding her shoes, his presence so close. He asks softly if she wants her shoes back. When she says yes, he tells her she should cry. Layla frowns, feeling a mix of frustration and disbelief. She wonders if he really enjoys tormenting her like this, over and over. She glances toward the glowing party hall in the distance, hoping Kyle might appear at any moment, walking toward her as he promised. The Duke remarks that Kyle won't be coming. She immediately shakes her head, disagreeing. Kyle keeps his promises. He is reliable and far better than the Duke. The Duke only smiles slightly, telling her not to be so certain. Layla looks at him, confused and a little hurt. She wonders why he despises her so much. The Duke shrugs, his expression calm, and admits that seeing her like this, despising her, watching her cry, watching her beg, makes him feel good. He enjoys it. Layla freezes for a moment, her mind struggling to process the words. How could he say something like that? He tells her he only answered her questions, and she doesn't quite know whether to be angry or shocked. She presses on, asking why he singles her out. Why he acts like this toward her and no one else. He answers bluntly. It's because she is Layla, and she is nothing. The words hit her harder than any insult she has ever received. Her relatives, who were quick to cast her out. Her drunk uncle who insulted and beat her every day. None of them ever crushed her heart as cruelly as this. Her chest tightens, and she feels a mix of sadness and resignation. Quietly, almost as if speaking to herself, she apologizes. She tells the Duke she is sorry that a nothing like herself dared to live on his estate. She thinks that maybe it would have been better if he hadn't allowed her to stay at all. He tells her that he wouldn't have been heartless enough. She lets out a quiet remark, noting that he is heartless enough right now, and it stings in exactly the way she imagined. Trying to make sense of it all, she asks what he plans to do with her now, if he drives her away. He tells her not to worry because she's already serving her purpose, being nothing. Then he reminds her that Kyle isn't coming, so she might as well cry or even beg. The tears finally start to fall freely, warm and soft against her cheeks. The Duke hands her shoes back to her before leaving the garden, but he notices she's still crying quietly. He thinks to himself that the tears belong entirely to him. They wash away the strange, wretched feeling he had earlier, the odd, indescribable sensation when he watched her from afar while kissing Claudine. In his mind, he notes that Layla has now understood the clear line that separates her from Kyle, the significance of social status, and the reason he never returned to her earlier. After a while, Layla rises and heads back toward the party hall, moving with her usual brisk, purposeful pace. She tells a passing servant to let Kyle know that she has gone home. Meanwhile, the Duke instructs the servant to bring Count Klein to the second-floor terrace. He knows the Count has already left, but it's a simple excuse to buy time. Layla walks through the garden quietly, her steps steady, not once glancing back at the party. The Duke watches her, noticing how self-contained she is, how completely indifferent she seems to everything except her own choices. There is no reason for her to stay at the party now, and she seems to know it. Finally, the servant reports that Count Klein has already retired for the evening, then goes to inform Kyle that Layla has left. The Duke knows that even if Kyle somehow slips away from his mother and comes looking for her, it's too late. She has left, and the tedious Midsummer Night's party will continue on, as if nothing has changed, leaving Layla quietly apart from it all. The next morning, Layla moves around the kitchen, telling Uncle Bill to hurry so he won't miss his train. He lingers by the doorway, worrying, creasing his face, glancing back at her. The house feels quiet without the bustle of his presence, and he can't shake the thought that she'll be alone for the next few days. She tilts her head, a small smile on her lips, brushing off the concern. 3 days aren't so long, she thinks, and he has to attend the ceremony, his brother's funeral. Bill mutters about decades passing without connecting with his late brother, shrugging at the thought that no one would miss him if he doesn't attend. He lingers a little longer, the air heavy with unspoken questions. His gaze softens as he questions if anything happened between her and Kyle. She shakes her head, and relief spreads across his features. Still, he frowns, puzzled by Kyle's absence lately. She explains, almost casually, that both of them are busy. Kyle preparing for college entrance exams, herself with studies and errands. Bill chuckles lightly, conceding that he's worried for nothing, then pauses, thoughtful. If she gets scared while he's away, Kyle can come over. He thinks aloud. A fleeting shadow crosses his face, a hint of doubt about trusting Kyle, but he brushes it off. He reminds her to keep the doors and windows locked, even in the heat. His hunting gun hangs in his room, a silent guardian. She nods, imagining it by her side at night, ready for anything. She promises to eat properly, study well, and keep herself safe. He adds one more thing. If Kyle stays past sunset, a firm poke with a shovel will make him leave. She arches an eyebrow, questioning if it really needs to come to that. Bill's expression softens into a grin, recalling Kyle at the party. The young man has grown into a full-fledged adult. The look in his eyes that night could make anyone worry. He jokes lightly, letting the tension ease before reminding her Mona, the servant who prepared her party dress, will watch over her. She nods, a quiet thank you slipping between them, and they say their goodbyes. Alone, Layla smooths her dress and straightens her posture, trying to appear composed and grown up. Still, a quiet unease settles in her chest. 3 days feel like a long stretch. Meanwhile, at Kyle's house, a small bird drops a folded letter. His eyes skim the words. She has an appointment. She's going into town, helping out in the garden, and today it's the library. The same pattern has repeated over the past few days. Appointments, errands, trips into town. The meaning becomes clear. She is avoiding him. Kyle's frustration builds, but he doesn't blame her. He remembers the fuss he made about being her partner, about protecting her, and how he left her alone at the party. He hits his fists on the table, the sound echoing through the room. His mother, in the living room, frowns at the noise, wondering what's going on. Kyle, feeling helpless and foolish, realizes the truth. He can't control this, and the thought of losing her troubles him. Impulse takes hold. He mounts his bicycle and pedals away in a rush, wind stinging his face. At Uncle Bill's place, Layla's eyes linger over clothes, then lift as Kyle bursts into view. He slows, catching his breath, and bows slightly, words spilling an apology. She shakes her head, a faint smile teasing her lips. Lies or excuses, it doesn't matter, he's here now. He admits he still feels guilty for leaving her at the party. She reassures him, though her mind drifts back to the day. The long-forgotten lesson that they belong to different worlds. She's always known it, yet chose to ignore it because of her feelings for him. Memories surface unbidden. Kyle, the first to reach out during her lonely childhood, who never treated her circumstances as flaws, who showed her kindness when most ignored her. She remembers introducing him to Uncle Bill, the warmth at the dinner table, the way the evening felt like a bridge connecting her past to something brighter. Walking home that night, she pondered how a child must grow into an adult, carrying pieces of both worlds. Now, with a quiet certainty, she decides to let go of her dear friend for his sake. She voices the thought softly, the words almost swallowed by the air. It's time they begin to grow apart. Kyle, startled, questions her meaning, wonders if she saw that night clearly. She nods and adds that it's necessary, the only way to remain good friends in the long run. Keeping distance will preserve the bond they both treasure. Kyle frowns, disbelief flashing across his features. He grips her hand, a silent protest in his touch. Losing her, letting this distance grow. Impossible, he thinks. His heart insists on closeness, yet her resolve stands firm. Layla turns toward the kitchen, a gentle invitation, and he follows, curiosity mingling with hope. Lunch awaits, but so does the unspoken understanding. The delicate dance of friendship and boundaries has just begun. At the Duke's place, Rietta's attention drifts to the little bird flitting about near the Duke. It chirps and hops, utterly unafraid, and Rietta can't help but wonder just how many lives the tiny creature thinks it has. Even stranger is the thought of Matthias allowing it to live, sparing it while so many other small things in the world face harsh ends. Her mind then drifts to Claudine, imagining what she might wear to her engagement party. A yellow dress comes to mind. Surely Duke Herhart would adore her in it the way he dotes on the bird, she thinks, but Claudine dislikes yellow. It feels vulgar to her, too bright for the refined image she wants to project. Riette muses aloud that a yellow dress might not be the perfect choice, yet soon Claudine will be the lady who beat the princess. That will matter more than anything else. The Duke nods thoughtfully, affirming what everyone seems to be saying. Rietta pushes him gently, curious about how it truly feels to surpass the princess, to take the place of honor in the house of her heart. She keeps silent after that, just poking him lightly with a needle. A sharp yelp escapes him, and she tells him enough with the tasteless jokes. Questions drift toward the Duke's future, when he will leave the military, whether he can focus fully on the family business once engaged. The Duke's answer is calm. Staying in the Royal Guard for a year or two won't hurt. Tradition runs deep in the house of her heart, and after his discharge, Duke Matthias will surely be a more honorable Duke than any before him. The conversation meanders to their engagement, the future, and small details of their life together. Eventually, the Duke tells them to relax as long as they need. When Rietta asks where he is going, he simply mentions work at the guest house. He sets out, intending to spend the afternoon there until dinner. But his steps falter when he stops and looks around. Somehow, he finds himself on the path to the gardener's cottage. He doesn't like it when his emotions take control, when the neat order of his world feels unsettled. His feelings for Layla, though, have a stubborn way of asserting themselves. His gaze follows her automatically, his senses sharpening, a quiet heat building deep inside. Willpower strains against the pull, but each step toward her only intensifies it. Desire, he reminds himself, should not take priority. And yet it does. Meanwhile, Layla is precariously perched on a tree, shouting for help. She tests the branch beneath her, careful not to apply too much weight. A fall could break her leg. Uncle Bill is away, and the thought makes her stomach twist. A few minutes earlier, she had seen Kyle off after lunch and was walking home when chirping drew her attention. On the ground, a tiny baby bird cried, recently hatched from a nest high in the backyard tree. She decided to return it, carefully climbing down, though her footing slipped. Fingers caught a branch, but she knows it's only a matter of time before she falls again. Kyle's name spills from her lips, desperate, hoping he might still hear her. Someone approaches. The Duke appears, his presence solid and commanding. He wonders aloud why she climbs trees so often, asking if she wants help. She keeps calling for Kyle, irritated that it is not him standing there. The Duke's voice cuts gently through her panic, telling her that Kyle won't come. She orders him away, insisting he can't help. Not one to leave a situation so cruelly unresolved, the Duke offers to call for help, though judging by her height, Kyle's father might be needed more than the boy himself. Layla's mind races. If her legs survive this ordeal, the first thing she will do is kick this obnoxious man who stands too close. Branches sway violently, her grip faltering, heart hammering. She remains silent for a moment, thinking, planning, resisting. Then terror pushes her to plead, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. The Duke reacts swiftly, removing his coat, moving with precise strength. She slips, begins to fall, and he catches her effortlessly. Her body is unharmed, though her heart races, a dizzy thrill flows through her. As her eyes blink open, calm washes over her for a moment, but then unfamiliar sensations slowly creep in, one by one. The weight of a large, firm body pressed against her back and head, the rapid thump of a heartbeat she feels through her chest. He had made it sound like he didn't care in the slightest if she fell, yet he had caught her. Embarrassment stings her as she remembers how she first told him to go away, then had called desperately for him. She imagines him laughing quietly at her, though she can't be sure. She shifts carefully, trying to rise and give her gratitude properly, all the while aware of the strange flutter she's been feeling since earlier. He catches her movement, pulling her back gently and insisting she stay still. Her cheeks heat up, and she fights a blush as she manages to free herself. He reminds her of his earlier warning to be a lady. Climbing trees and tumbling from them hardly fits that image. She shoots back, questioning why she should bother being a lady when he himself isn't a gentleman. Surprise flashes across him as he leans closer, the air between them charged with a tense curiosity. Her mind spins back to the guest house, to the words she had thrown at him before, calling him the finest gentleman in all of Carlsbad. Now she admits to herself that it had been a mistake, a misjudgment. His fingers brush her face, deliberate and steady, and she feels the restraint he's kept like a true gentleman all this time, holding back the impulses that had been pressing at his control. Her protest dies in her throat, a mixture of disbelief and reluctant gratitude. Then, before she can gather her thoughts, he leans in. The kiss comes fast, almost fierce, and her words vanish into it. The world narrows to swaying leaves above, the pale sky, and the sharp, unblinking stare of his eyes. Every time her gaze meets his, it feels like she's an exposed creature in the sight of a predator, helpless and unnervingly vulnerable. She tries to reason with herself, telling herself that he feels nothing, that she is meaningless, just as she had watched him step on a coin without a flicker of care, or calmly watch a bird fall. Her insignificance is absolute in his presence, and yet the intensity of him lingers, pressing into her, making her chest tighten. Her thoughts scatter. After a long, lingering moment, he pulls back, his eyes still sharp on her, and then without another word, he gathers his coat and walks away, leaving her in a haze of confusion, heat, and something she can't quite name. As the Duke walks away, memories of what just happened keep flashing through his mind, over and over. The moment he held Layla in his arms, every bit of reason vanished. All that remained was a strong, burning desire to have her, a raw need that felt almost animalistic, as if he were driven by something beyond thought. He feels himself wanting to see that desire through to the very end, to give in completely. Still, after a moment, he pushes the thought away, telling himself it is meaningless, that it does not matter in the bigger picture, that it is ultimately unimportant. He thinks about that moment again. If only she hadn't cried. If only he had allowed himself to lose control, to act on the base, raw feelings that had been building up. Every time he comes back to Arvis, he notices how much the child has grown, changing with the seasons, small shifts that never meant much before. But this summer, something feels different because of her. She has made him see things in a way he never has before. Summer in Berg is short, always passing too quickly. Soon the cool breeze will start to blow, and the days of heat and sunlight will be gone, as if nothing had ever happened. It will feel like a dream, fleeting and fragile. Layla herself thinks the same way as she fetches water, intending to wash her face, but instead she pours it over her whole body, letting it flow across her arms and chest, trying to wash away the embarrassment, the fear, and the dizzying, strange feelings swirling in her mind. Meanwhile, at Kyle's place, he keeps thinking about Layla's words. It's time they start to grow apart. Even after she said it, she continues to act the same as before. They still eat together, laugh together, talk like everything is normal. He feels a mix of anxiety and numbness whenever he is near her, but he goes along willingly, pretending that nothing is wrong. He knows he cannot bear to hurt her, and even as he plays along, he senses that inside she might feel the same conflicted way he does. He does not want to burden her with his feelings, only to quiet his own restless mind. Still, no matter how he tries, he cannot shake off the uneasy feeling pressing on him, the sense that something has changed permanently. That invisible line she has drawn between them will not disappear, and he knows it. If he must follow his mother's wishes and start thinking about marriage, he knows he cannot delay it any longer. It is for the best, he tells himself. But he also knows that protecting her does not have to follow anyone else's rules. He can protect them both in his own way, on his own terms. He walks down the hall to his father's room and knocks softly on the door. His father calls him in, and Kyle steps inside, careful to stay composed, even though his chest feels heavy. He says he has something important to tell him. His father studies him closely, seeing the seriousness in his son's eyes, and nods slightly, giving him permission to speak. Kyle begins, explaining that he thinks his mother believes he is old enough to start considering marriage soon. His father chuckles softly, asking if that is why he looks so serious. He adds that his mother sometimes imagines things that are not quite real yet, and gets ahead of herself. He reassures Kyle, saying he does not share the same urgency, that there is no need to rush, and that no matter what his mother says, his own opinion is different. There is no reason for Kyle to start thinking about marriage just yet. Kyle hesitates for a moment, then continues, steady and certain, letting his words flow naturally. He says he has also been thinking about marriage, in a way that matters deeply to him. His father leans forward, a little surprised, studying him carefully. He asks if Kyle really means he wants to be married. Kyle nods, firm in his choice, and says that he wants to marry Layla. Not only that, he wants them to attend college together, to live side by side, to build a life together while continuing their studies and growing closer with each day. At night, Layla wakes up again. Sleep has been hard to come by for the last 3 days. She wonders if it's because of the fear of being alone in the empty house, the quiet pressing in around her. Most nights she stays awake until dawn, restless and uneasy, and when sleep finally comes, it brings nightmares that grip her tight and pull her back into memories from long ago. Sometimes in those dreams she sees the Duke, and when she wakes, her eyes fill with tears and a heavy ache sits in her chest. She wonders if the memory of the Duke and what happened that afternoon will also settle in her mind like a shadow, haunting her for years to come. She wants to forget it all. She throws herself into work during the day, tiring herself out completely so she can fall into exhausted sleep. But the harder she tries to escape, the more stubborn the images become, sticking in her mind and growing sharper, more vivid, as if refusing to let her go. She feels weak because of the lack of sleep, but she cannot let herself sink fully into despair. After all, Uncle Bill is supposed to come back today, and she promised herself that she would be fine for him. Her thoughts drift to the past for a moment, but she shakes them away, focusing instead on him and the relief she'll feel once he's home. Once he returns, she tells herself, everything will be okay. The fear of being alone, the memory of a cruel first kiss, the confusing whirlwind of feelings, it will all be all right. Later in the day, Layla begins to wonder why her uncle hasn't returned yet. It's almost evening, and the house feels emptier than ever. Her mind goes to a dark place, recalling an article she once read about train accidents, where many people had lost their lives at once, sometimes including carriages and cars. Her heart tightens as she imagines the worst, thinking maybe something like that is the reason he hasn't come back yet. It's a habit she's long carried, imagining the worst-case scenario first, so that if misfortune strikes, she won't be completely unprepared. If she can steel herself mentally, she might face reality with some composure, or at least try to. She has managed this before, but now, with Uncle Bill involved, she isn't sure she can. What-ifs run through her mind like a river, unending and exhausting. She thinks back to her mother, remembering the moment she had given her candy and promised she would go far away but would come back. She wishes now her mother had never made that promise, because it had left her with a memory full of emptiness and broken hope. Her mother, too beautiful to live a simple life as a poor man's wife, left them behind, leaving only a trail of rumors. People said she had become the mistress of some aristocrat, or married a wealthy merchant and moved to a faraway country. The gossip crushed her father's heart and did nothing to help her find her mother. Her father, having given up on work and sinking into drink, became a broken man, a shadow of himself, and it felt like there was no place for her in his forsaken heart. At times, he avoided looking at her entirely, unable to face the reflection of her mother in her face. Still, she clung to hope. She believed that if her mother came back, they could return to the happy days of the family they once were. By the time she had finally finished the last drops of the candy, she had a sinking feeling, but she forced herself to believe in her mother anyway. That was probably why she couldn't bring herself to eat the last piece of candy, holding it instead as if it carried the promise of better days. She walked into her father's room one evening and found him shaking, exhausted from life and grief. Gently, she took a blanket and covered him. He pulled her close and hugged her, apologizing quietly for all the pain, and promised that the next day they would go buy food and firewood together. She asked if she could go with him, and he agreed. He told her he would find work so that he could buy her treats and suggested that when the flowers bloom in spring, they could go to the park together. She smiled at the thought, excited, and drifted to sleep, holding the warmth of his promises close. But in the early hours of the morning, when the faint warmth of his body had faded, her father passed away quietly in his sleep. All she had left were the promises he had made, which now felt like a testament, and the single piece of candy he had saved for her. She thought bitterly that he shouldn't have made promises if he was going to leave her like that. After that, her relatives, unsure of what to do with the burden she had become, left her to herself. At last, she put the last piece of candy in her mouth, biting down hard. The shards scraped her lips and tongue, tasting sweet and metallic all at once, a reminder of loss and longing. She resolves silently that she will not let herself feel that kind of pain again. She tells herself that Uncle Bill must return safely this time. He cannot leave her alone. Suddenly, she sees him at the door, calling her name. She wipes away her tears, forcing a bright smile onto her face so she can greet him properly. Without hesitation, she runs to him, wrapping her arms around him in a warm, tight hug. From the street, the Duke rides by in a car and stares at them for a moment, watching the reunion before the vehicle moves on. Uncle Bill asks her how she's been, and she answers simply, smiling that she's doing just fine, feeling relief flood through her at the sight of him. The conversation between the doctor and his son continues in a calm but serious mood. Kyle's father asks if he has really thought about everything over the past few days, and Kyle quietly confirms that he has. He adds that he has already made up his mind, and there is no hesitation in his voice. His father watches him for a moment, then gently admits that he understands how strongly his son feels for Layla. If he didn't love her this much, he wouldn't be holding on to the idea so stubbornly. Still, his father explains that the two of them are simply too young to think about marriage, and in his opinion, it would be better for Kyle to focus on his studies for now. Kyle listens, but he brings up what his mom has been saying. She wants him to marry a young lady from the Arndt family, someone who is around his age. He even mentions Lady Claudine, who is just a year older than them, and yet she's already about to be engaged to Duke Herhart. His father tries to speak again, but Kyle cuts in slowly, saying he knows it isn't really about age. He feels his dad just doesn't approve of Layla. He doesn't want to end up with someone he has no interest in, and that is why he's having this conversation. His father can't deny that there is some truth in what Kyle is saying, but he reminds him that marriage is not only about the two people involved. Kyle nods because he already knows that. He says he isn't trying to pretend that family reputation, status, and everything that comes with it aren't important. But even with all that, he still wants to marry Layla. He explains gently that none of those things can be more important than the person he wants to share his whole life with. Kyle talks about his dreams with a calm honesty. He wants to be a good doctor, a good husband, and a good father someday, just like his dad. But for him, everything begins with Layla. He wants to live a sincere and steady life with her, building a family together. With her beside him, he feels like he can accomplish anything. Without her, he doesn't think his life would have the same meaning. He says she is already a real part of him, and the sides of him that both his mom and dad admire have grown because of her. Maybe she's the one who helped him become a better person in the first place. That is why he cannot imagine losing her. So he quietly pleads that his father help him live the life he has always dreamed about. The next day arrives, and Claudine is getting dressed for the big event. Her mother is already emotional, almost crying as she watches her daughter prepare. Claudine laughs softly and tells her not to cry, and her mom tries to hold herself together. Claudine remembers Rietta's words about how it must feel to rise above the princess and become the lady of the famous house of Herhart. The memory brings a small smile to her face. The Emperor of Berg had tried hard to secure the position of Duchess for his beloved daughter, but the Herhart family chose Claudine instead. She knows it isn't because they love her, but the logic behind it is clear. She is a noble bride with a dowry that can match the wealth of princesses, yet she doesn't need to be treated like royalty. When she thinks of her family name standing beside the powerful name of Herhart, she doesn't consider the decision unreasonable at all. Instead, she feels grateful. After today's engagement, her status will be higher than that of a princess of Berg. That single thought fills her with a warm sense of satisfaction, almost like she could love the entire world, even the husband she doesn't love, and even his yellow bird. Soon, she asks her maid, Marie, if someone has not arrived yet. Marie answers that the person should already be here by now. Claudine looks outside and spots Layla. Her mom seems uneasy, unable to believe that her daughter has sent for Layla again. Claudine explains that she needed fresh flowers to decorate her hair, so she sent for Layla. She even adds that it might be nice to receive congratulations from an old friend. Earlier that day, Claudine's maid had visited Bill's house to fetch Layla, ordering her to decorate the manor with flowers for the event. Layla already understands that Claudine didn't really send for her because of the flowers. By the time she reaches the 4th floor of the East Wing, her palms feel damp and her lips go dry. Every step feels heavy, almost like she is a prisoner walking toward a judgment she can't avoid. She tries to steady herself by reminding her heart that what happened between her and the Duke that day was nothing more than an accident. He probably brushed it aside just as quickly as she tried to. He hasn't stepped into the woods since that day, and that alone makes her more certain that he has already moved past it. She quietly decides to let it go too. She knocks softly and tells them she has brought the flowers they asked for. When she enters the room, Claudine turns toward her, already dressed up, and casually asks what she thinks of her appearance. Layla answers honestly that Claudine looks beautiful. Claudine then asks if she thinks Duke Herhart will think the same. Layla hesitates for a moment but says yes, the Duke will. Claudine smiles as if that answer satisfies her completely. Layla congratulates her on the engagement, and Claudine accepts it with confidence, saying the ceremony will be perfect. She turns her head slightly and signals to her maid. The maid steps forward, places a few coins in Layla's hand, and tells her to be grateful. Layla doesn't argue. She simply leaves the room and walks out quickly, hoping she can reach home without crossing paths with the Duke. But as she reaches the stairs, she freezes. The Duke is coming up with a servant beside him. The servant greets her politely, and she replies while stepping aside. And she expects the Duke to walk past without sparing her a thought, but he stops for a brief moment and looks at her. His eyes stay on her long enough for her heart to tighten. Then he finally continues up the stairs without a word. Later, at sunset, Layla sits quietly by the river. She thinks about how busy the manor must be by now. Lady Mona had been worried earlier that there would be more guests than usual tonight. Even though she is still within the same estate, this quiet place by the water feels like a whole different world compared to the manor's noise and bright lights. Her mind drifts again, and she suddenly realizes something she never paid attention to before. The Duke's eyes share the same color as the candies she kept for so long. The same colors tied to her old memories, and the same colors she associates with her sorrow. Someone calls her name, pulling her out of her thoughts. It's Kyle. She asks how he knew she was here. He smiles and answers that he simply had a feeling. This place has always been her favorite, especially that spot on the tree above her. She climbs down from the branch and looks at him. She notices how neat and dressed up he is, so she jokes lightly, asking if he's preparing for the engagement party. He looks away and says no. Then he tells her that today is a very important day for him. He takes a slow breath and brings out the bouquet of flowers he had been hiding behind his back. With steady eyes and sincere words, he tells her that the two of them should get married. As summer comes to an end, the Herhart and Brandt families host a large celebration that pulls in countless guests, all eager to witness the engagement between Matthias and Claudine. Even though everyone knows the engagement was arranged carefully by both families, with every benefit weighed and discussed, the crowd can't see any of that in the young couple. To them, Matthias and Claudine look like a pair painted straight out of a storybook. Fresh-faced, steady, and perfectly matched. Since their childhood, people have always created stories around them, filling in the gaps with their own expectations and dreams. Rumors about their supposed love have been whispered everywhere for years. At the same time, another rumor spreads through high society, that the emperor's youngest daughter was rejected by the Duke and is now struggling to find another suitable partner. The news becomes a favorite topic among nobles, adding even more noise to the season. Time moves on, and soon it is autumn. After the busy and overwhelming rush of guests, Arves finally becomes quiet again. Matthias is sent to join the royal guard, so he leaves for the empire's capital, Rates. With him gone, Claudine returns to her family's estate. Layla feels a deep breath of relief when she hears that the Duke has left. Knowing he won't return for at least a year lets her loosen the fear she had been carrying. She no longer needs to walk around the estate feeling tense or avoid certain paths just in case she runs into him. With him gone, she believes her painful memories won't be triggered so easily anymore. She even goes to the mansion more comfortably now when she delivers flowers. While she waits, she overhears the maids chatting among themselves. They wonder when the couple plan to marry, since some time has passed since the engagement party. One maid mentions hearing that the wedding will likely happen once the Duke finishes his service with the royal guard. They all agree that the wait feels long, but they also say the Brandt family wants Claudine to live in Arvis once she becomes a wife. Layla's basket is handed back to her, and she leaves the mansion quietly. On her way home, she thinks again about the Duke's absence. She tells herself that once she gets her teaching license and starts working, she won't have to worry at all about crossing paths with him, even if he comes back to the estate someday. Snow begins to fall softly around her, and she watches the flakes drift down. She thinks that if time continues to move like this, gently and steadily, she might be able to return to her old life completely. She keeps that hope close to her heart, holding on to it as tightly as she needs. Meanwhile, far away in Ratzi, the Duke steps into the Herhart residence. He is greeted immediately and informed that two ladies are waiting for him. He already knows it must be his mother and grandmother. They have traveled here to attend the upcoming wedding of the youngest princess next month, and they plan to stay for a while. He enters the room and greets them both. His grandmother studies him warmly and asks if he has been well, since it has been such a long time. He answers that he has and then turns to greet his mother too. The next day, the Duke walks through the garden with his mom, and she casually points out how warm the day feels. The roses are already starting to bloom, and the place looks lively now that the flowers are opening up, even though she quietly admits that it still can't compare to the gardens back in Arvis. While enjoying the view, she asks again just to be sure if he truly told the Brandt family that he plans to extend his service. He confirms it without hesitation, saying he's thinking of staying another year. His mom simply accepts it, saying that if that's what he wants, then so be it. Still, she didn't expect the royal princess to get married before him, and it seems the thought bothers her a little. She then mentions that something amusing is happening back in Arvis. She shares that the doctor's son, Kyle Ettman, is going to get married soon. The Duke pauses and asks who Kyle is marrying. His mom explains that it's the orphan girl, Layla, and she isn't even sure if he remembers her. He answers that he doubts Layla fits the Ettman family's standards for a suitable bride. His mom goes on, almost baffled, saying it's surprising that the Ettmans would choose a girl like Layla. She also shares that grandmother had been hoping to find Kyle a proper bride, and now she's upset because she always liked him. Meanwhile, Mrs. Ettman, who worked so hard trying to bring a noble girl into the family, is now bedridden because she couldn't stop the decision. Since Dr. Ettman already gave his blessing, there's nothing she can do. Mrs. Herhart talks about how Mrs. Ettman used to carry herself with so much dignity, but her son's choice has ruined any chance for their family to enter high society. She insists that no noble family would willingly associate with people who took in a peasant orphan as a daughter-in-law. The Duke quietly replies that things could still change since they aren't married yet. His mom agrees, but adds that the wedding is definitely on the way because both the doctor and Kyle seem determined. She admits that Layla is very beautiful, but the whole situation is still a terrible move for the Ettmans. She calls Layla clever, but says it isn't fair to blame the girl. Still, she thinks it's childish for Kyle to let love cloud his judgment this way, and claims he has ruined his family's name with this decision. As she speaks, the Duke absent-mindedly picks a flower and squeezes it between his fingers. Later that evening, after his bath, he notices a small bunch of flowers placed nearby and assumes his mother brought them. The soft scent of roses fills the room, and it pulls him straight back to memories of summer at the estate. Layla always helped her uncle with the garden, and somehow, without planning it, she became a quiet part of every summer he spent there. She always carried that gentle rose scent with her, a smell that came from flowers grown slowly and carefully by someone who truly understood how to care for them. As he breathes in the familiar scent, he thinks of Layla again. To him, she has always been a strange sort of misfortune. Something beautiful that grew quietly in a place no one would expect, deep in the forest. He tells himself that she is nothing, and the Ettman name will bring her nothing as well. Maybe it's better this way. Maybe her marriage will finally remove her from his life, and he imagines himself applauding more loudly than anyone else on their wedding day. He whispers her name under his breath and tells himself that he won't see her when the flowers bloom again. But then a question slips through. How is he supposed to return if she won't be there anymore? He sits up, reaches for the letter he wrote to request an extension of service, reads through it again, and steadily tears it into pieces. On a bright and sunny afternoon, Kyle approaches Uncle Bill with his usual cheerful stride and greets him warmly. He immediately asks about Layla, and Uncle Bill explains that she is at the shed clearing out some things. Kyle heads in that direction with a smile resting comfortably on his face. He finds her working quietly, and with the same enthusiasm he has carried through every season, he remarks that the weather feels almost perfect. The wind blows with a crisp softness, the sunlight warms the earth, and flowers bloom along the streets as if celebrating the day. In his eyes, all these small details align to create the perfect atmosphere for a wedding. He then expresses his thoughts honestly, suggesting once again that the day is ideal for them to get married. Layla refuses, and he accepts the rejection without losing his composure. He decides aloud that he will simply ask again the next day. She insists that he shouldn't return to the topic because she will not change her mind, but Kyle believes that people are unpredictable, and because of that, he will try again anyway. As always, he speaks with the calm certainty of someone whose heart has settled completely on a choice. Meanwhile, Uncle Bill watches the exchange from a distance, and each time he witnesses Kyle getting rejected, something in him tightens painfully. He feels genuinely sorry for the poor kid. He tries to count how many times Kyle has proposed to Layla. The attempts stretch all the way back to the previous summer, and since then, Kyle hasn't missed a single day. He has asked throughout autumn, winter, and spring. The number has become impossible to track because it has grown beyond anything Uncle Bill had imagined. He remembers the very first day he heard that Kyle proposed to Layla the previous summer. He knew such a moment might come, yet hearing it directly still startled him. He called Kyle stubborn in his mind and felt the urge to chase him off, thinking the teenager must have lost his sense of reason. He dismissed the proposal as a burst of emotion from a hot-blooded boy who didn't fully understand what he was doing. But after a few days passed, a realization dawned on him that he had misjudged the situation entirely. Dr. Ettman himself visited his home, and with a steady and calm tone, informed him of his son's marriage intentions. Uncle Bill doubted what he was hearing and asked if the doctor truly meant what he was saying. Dr. Ettman confirmed it without hesitation and explained his plans for the young couple. If Kyle and Layla were to marry, he wanted to send them both to university, and he was prepared to cover the cost of their tuition. The offer shocked Uncle Bill, prompting him to ask why the Ettman family wanted Layla specifically, when they clearly had the means to find Kyle a wife from a more prestigious background. The doctor explained that although the world was changing, his love for his son had not. He wanted the best for him in both status and nobility. But even without those qualities, Layla remained an exceptional person. That was the very reason Kyle wished to marry her. Dr. Ettman then repeated Kyle's heartfelt explanation that a person's character held greater value than anything else, and that Layla inspired him to strive toward becoming the best version of himself. Kyle wanted to be her husband more than he desired anything else in the world. The doctor concluded that Kyle was too earnest and too grounded to be dismissed as an overly emotional teenager. He believed Uncle Bill knew his son well enough to recognize that Kyle's feelings were genuine. Hearing that, Uncle Bill felt deeply surprised, but the doctor continued. He suggested they observe the situation for a year to see if Kyle's heart remained steady. If Kyle stayed committed, then he would bless the marriage fully. He asked Uncle Bill for his thoughts. Uncle Bill had always wished for Layla to meet someone kind who would offer her a gentle, peaceful future. He never imagined that someone like Kyle, the son of the well-respected Ettman family, would be the one making such a promise. Even among noble families, the Ettman household possessed an immaculate reputation. The idea of Layla marrying into that home stunned him. And when he remembered Dr. Ettman's mention of sending her to university, a dream she had quietly buried because of their financial limitations, he could not deny the weight of the opportunity. He found himself hoping with all sincerity that Layla would eventually accept the proposal. He wished that she would marry such a devoted young man and finally live a happy life filled with the opportunities she had once believed were out of reach. A full year passes after Uncle Bill's conversation with Dr. Ettman, and the time confirms something undeniable. Kyle's heart has not changed even slightly. His commitment remains steady, just as strong as the first day he confessed his intention. Layla, however, stays firm in her refusals, clinging to her decision with a quiet resolve that puzzles and pains her uncle. Seeing how things have unfolded, Uncle Bill decides it is finally time to step in. One evening, when the sun settles low and fills the small cabin with a fading amber warmth, he speaks openly to her. He explains that he truly believes she should consider marriage, and he asks why she keeps turning down Kyle's proposals. He encourages her gently, pointing out that she has an opportunity many people never receive. He reminds her that if she marries Kyle, she can go to university, open new doors for herself, and step into a broader world. Layla responds softly, yet with a firmness shaped by long contemplation. The idea of marrying Kyle unsettles her, not because she dislikes him, but because she fears her presence in his life will turn him and his family into objects of ridicule. She believes society will mock them endlessly for accepting an orphaned girl with no noble name into their house. When her uncle challenges her by asking why the opinions of others should matter if she can be happy, she remains convinced. Uncle Bill then informs her that Dr. Ettman supports the marriage fully. He urges her to think only about her heart and asks directly whether she feels anything for Kyle. She answers honestly, as she admits that she likes him deeply, acknowledging that he is perhaps the kindest and most warm-hearted friend she has ever known. Precisely because she cares for him, she doesn't want to become the cause of mockery or disgrace for him. Her uncle then questions where her confidence has gone. Layla explains that she finally likes who she is becoming. She has learned to walk with her head held high, regardless of people's judgments. She strives every day to become an adult who behaves well and makes him proud. But when it comes to marriage, she feels uncertain. She confesses that she doesn't believe marriage is necessary for everyone, not even for her. Uncle Bill asks if she truly intends to spend her entire life tucked away in a cabin beside him. She answers that she wants exactly that. She doesn't wish to leave him alone in the forest of Arvis. Now that she has earned her teaching license, she plans to find a job nearby and help with their expenses. Uncle Bill shakes his head gently. The forest will still be where it has always been, and he will remain here for many more years. When he grows old and weary someday, he will leave the groundskeeper job, but that day has not come. He tells her she should not worry about him, reassures her that even if she marries or goes away to university, she will remain like a daughter to him. And he reminds her that men like Kyle are very rare in this world. He believes with full conviction that Kyle will become a good husband and a good father. He encourages her to reflect on the future she could have. With Kyle, she could build a family of her own, and she would never face loneliness again. Layla counters that she already has a real family with Uncle Bill. He nods, but insists that if they truly are a family, then she should listen to him. With that, he hands her an envelope containing a train ticket to the capital, Ratzi, along with some money. The university entrance exam will take place the following week, so she must begin preparing the very next morning. He tells her not to think of refusing, because if she fails to travel to Ratsay and take the exam, he will assume she does not see him as family. The weight of his words settles over her, and she takes the envelope, understanding how serious he is. After a moment, she timidly asks what happens if she fails the exam. He simply tells her that he will think about it when the time comes. A new week arrives, pulling her toward a future she never imagined for herself. Layla stands at Carlsbar Station beside Kyle as they prepare to take the train to the capital. She asks whether his father will accompany them. Kyle explains that one of his father's patients had an emergency, so the doctor had to return to the hospital. His father sends his apologies, unable to join them after all. Layla feels her nerves rising. It is her first time traveling to Ratsay, and the thought of going so far makes her uneasy. She wonders aloud whether it is truly all right for just the two of them to travel alone. Kyle reassures her that he knows the way well. He has family in the capital and has visited several times. In his thoughts, he quietly resolves to show her that she can rely on him without hesitation. The train soon arrives with a rush of sound and movement. Kyle helps carry her luggage with steady hands, and she thanks him quietly. But as she steps onto the train, she freezes. A wave of old memories flashes through her mind, pulling at her heart with unexpected force. She thinks about how impossible this journey would have seemed not too long ago. She wonders how she will ever repay the immense kindness and support Uncle Bill has given her. Despite her fear, she promises herself that she will return. As for Duke Matthias, he originally planned to extend his service for another year, but he changed his mind and submitted a request to be discharged. Grandma Dowager Herhart and others try to persuade him to reconsider. But he won't be swayed. Colonel Farrell feels disappointed when he receives the letter, though he figures that if the Duke considers the needs of the whole empire, it might be a greater loss to keep him tied to the military, but he is only speaking as a soldier. The Duke thanks him politely. He has always treated his superiors with the utmost respect, even those of lower social standing, unlike other officers of noble birth who often struggle to separate personal matters from their duty. And Colonel Farrell greatly admires this quality in the Duke, and the fact that he served his first post on the harsh front line overseas and achieved so much only strengthens that admiration. After exchanging brief farewells with the fellow officers he has served alongside, Matthias heads to the Army headquarters in Ratsay. He meets a few superiors, then visits the residence of the Army Chief of Staff, and finally concludes his service as an officer. His plan, which should have gone smoothly, is disrupted by a single piece of gossip about Layla. As he prepares to head back to the mansion, having completed all his business for the day, he sees Layla. He wonders why she's in the capital. He wears his cap and tells a servant to go on ahead of him. Layla is looking at the Natural History Museum, still amazed on the second day. Even after a full day yesterday, it feels just as magnificent to her. Kyle had suggested she visit it the first day, and she remembers how breathtaking it had been, like stepping into a little slice of heaven on Earth. The only problem is how huge the museum is. There's no way to see everything in just one day. She wishes Kyle could be here with her today, but she'd told him to stay home and study since he has an exam tomorrow. Determined to make the most of her time, she decides to spend the whole day exploring. If she manages another visit before they leave Ratsay, she thinks she could see almost everything. With that in mind, she boldly approaches the grand building, its tall stone columns and wide glass windows inviting her in. Inside, she immediately begins writing in her notebook, pen moving across the page as she takes notes on what she sees. From afar, the Duke watches her. She seems so carefree, almost like a child on a picnic. Yet there's this quiet seriousness in how she observes everything and writes. She walks through the vast exhibition halls, yet she doesn't look tired at all. Occasionally, she stops to jot something down with a scholar's intensity, and then her face brightens into a smile that lights up the hall. The Duke wonders if he should approach her, but he hesitates. He knows that the moment he gets close, that effortless smile might vanish completely, leaving no trace of it behind. After a while, she steps outside and spots a tree nearby. She stretches up to catch a leaf, reaching as far as she can. The Duke moves closer silently, and before she can fully realize, he lifts her gently up. When he puts her down, he pulls her just a little closer to him. She immediately steps back, startled, and he takes off his cap, a small gesture of acknowledgement. Her heart flutters and she fidgets slightly, recognizing him instantly. Layla wants to greet him politely and walk away, but she can't ignore the subtle nod of his head, instructing her to follow. Crossing paths with him brings a rush of memories she's barely managed to suppress, especially the memory of their first kiss. She thinks that's probably why her heart is pounding so hard, yet she can't help wondering where he's leading her. Soon, he guides her to the cafe where she had lunch with Kyle on their first day in Ratsay. She wonders if he wants to have tea with her and notices that people around have already recognized him. Unsure of what to do, she says politely that it's a pleasure to meet him and that she'll be on her way. He stops her with a quiet, deliberate movement, and she realizes he's being cautious because of the crowd. She asks what he's doing, noticing that he's standing in her way, and admits that she dislikes what's happening. She thinks they shouldn't be doing this. He raises an eyebrow and asks if she's tempted to do something she shouldn't. She quickly denies it. He responds calmly that he's merely buying a cup of tea for an orphan who lives on his estate, someone he happened to run into in the capital, and he questions what's wrong with that generosity. Layla thinks to herself that she can't claim to truly know him, but she's certain of one thing. He always gets what he wants. And the more someone resists, the deeper they'll find themselves drawn in. Despite her unease, she decides to accept, taking a seat and watching him as he gets his tea. Since he doesn't speak, she notes to herself that she never imagined she'd see him here in Ruthless. He finally asks what brings her to the capital, and she answers honestly. Then he questions why she's here for the college entrance exam, when last year she wanted to become a teacher. He concludes that she probably accepted Kyle's proposal, reasoning that it's unlikely Mr. Bill would have had the means to send her to college in the capital. Breaking the silence, she asks if he's interested in natural history. He replies as expected. She knows perfectly well that he isn't. Then she asks if he had an appointment today, and he hints that it wasn't a coincidence that they met here. She thinks to herself that it must be a coincidence. After all, she's nothing more than a lowly orphan, an object of unwanted kindness and pity. She doesn't want to be anything more to him than that. She declines any further interaction, stating firmly that the only thing she knows is that he dislikes her. He affirms it, adding that he really despises her now. She tells him she'll leave so she won't disturb the peace of his estate again. He asks where she'll go, and she responds that Arvis isn't the only place in the world where she can stay. She wants to leave, but she forces herself not to act rashly as she once might have. She takes a sip of her tea and drops some money on the table to pay for it. He questions whether she thinks he needs money from someone like her. She responds simply that she has no desire for him to pay for her tea, letting the moment pass quietly. Layla squeezes her palms together, knowing she's being reckless, but still wanting to make it clear that, at the very least, this place isn't part of his world. He instructs her to look at him, but she refuses. When he tells her again, she snaps quietly that he shouldn't order her around. She's not his maid. Living in Arvis, thanks to his generosity, doesn't make her his servant, and she wants him to understand that. He asks what she is, and her mind flashes back to the night he made her cry outside the party hall. She swallows the memory and replies softly that she is nothing, as she has always been and will always be. He stands, takes the money she left on the table, and then returns it with a little extra. He says it's only right to compensate her, since she's not his maid, but he's taken her time. Then, with a half smile, he points out that she takes Claudine's coins with proper courtesy, so if she refuses his, she should consider it charity for a proper orphan. He even adds that she had no problem accepting a marriage proposal from a man who pitied her, so it would be ridiculous to act proud over a few coins. She can't hide her tears anymore. Her chest tightens, and she thinks that if tears are all she can give, then she will give them. Maybe then, he won't see her as nothing. That night, when he hears about her engagement to the doctor's son, he resolves to return to Arvis, yet part of him desperately wishes she would marry quickly and disappear from his world. Even now, helpless against his own impulses and obsessed with a single girl, he can't help hoping that the tears and wounds he caused her remain with her forever, if she's going to leave. After that, he leaves, and Layla walks out toward a nearby fountain. She watches people around her toss coins into the water, noting that if a coin lands in the statue's jug, their wishes might come true. She decides to put the money the Duke discarded to good use. Carefully, she tosses one coin, and it lands perfectly in the jug. Surprised and delighted, she whispers a wish for Uncle Bill to have a long, healthy life. Another coin goes in, and she wishes for Kyle to be accepted into medical school. A third coin lands, and she wishes for herself to live an honest and good life someday. As she prepares to throw another for one last wish, a voice calls out. She turns to see Kyle running toward her, panting slightly. He asks, worried, what she's doing there, and says he's been looking for her everywhere. She remembers they were supposed to have dinner together and apologizes, admitting she lost track of time. Kyle explains that he went to the museum only to find it closed, then searched nearby but couldn't find her anywhere. He admits he was starting to panic. She'd never break a promise, but in a city where she has no connections, he couldn't stop worrying. She apologizes again, feeling a little guilty. Noticing her red eyes, he asks if she's been crying, if something happened while he was gone. She shakes her head, lying that she had such a productive day. He expresses surprise that all the coins she tossed made it into the jug. She decides to throw the last one for an important wish, but misses it completely. Kyle asks what she wishes for, and then insists on making a wish for her. She protests, saying it would be a waste of money. He reminds her that she just threw a whole bunch of gold coins in the fountain, and she can't argue with that. Laughing, she persuades him they should just use the money to buy ice cream later, and he agrees. As they walk through the streets, he looks at her and asks about the last wish she wanted to make. She smiles and says it's a secret, keeping it to herself. That makes him even more curious. He keeps looking at her, wondering what it could be as they keep walking. Shortly, they get their ice cream. She asks if it's okay for him to relax, and he says it's fine because exams only show what someone already knows. Nothing will change by cramming the day before. Layla usually crams the night before, so she notices he seems confident. He confirms it and jokes that it's a necessary skill for a future husband. She stays quiet, and he wonders why. Then he asks why she's looking at him like that. She admits she's been thinking and asks if he can imagine them as husband and wife. He says he has thought about it many times, but she says it's hard to picture. They've been friends since childhood, so it feels strange. He asks if it wouldn't be better than an arranged marriage, and she agrees, but she still can't imagine them raising a child together. It feels odd to her. Kyle is caught off guard when she says reproduction, asking how she can say that so calmly. She says it's natural, something every creature does. She adds that if they married, it would be the natural next step, but the thought of it still seems strange. He imagines a romantic moment, but remembers Uncle Bill's advice to think of a shovel to calm himself. He tells her to eat her ice cream before it melts, but she says to listen. He laughs and says he can't hear her. Then he notes it's getting late and he needs to study, so they should go. She asks if she can ask him something first. He agrees, and she asks why he wants to marry her. She recalls the Duke's words that Kyle might pity her and wonders if that's the reason. He pauses, then asks if he looks like someone who would marry out of pity. He says there are people crazy enough to do that, but he isn't one of them. He wants to marry her because he loves her. Plain and simple. He repeats it and points out that he can't be pitying her. She's turned him down many times. She thinks about Kyle and realizes that his love and kindness make her feel valued, not small or lowly. She had hoped they could stay friends for years, but now with his proposal, there are only two choices: marry or become strangers. She doesn't want to lose him, so she knows what she must do. She calls him and thanks him. He asks why, and she says because she loves him. He remembers he almost forgot to ask today, so he proposes again, expecting her to reject him as usual. But this time, she accepts. He drops his ice cream in surprise, thinking he must have misheard. She confirms she wants to marry him. He moves closer and hugs her, holding her tightly, hoping it's real. She assures him it is. He shouts in joy and lifts her up, unable to contain his happiness. At night, Kyle dreams of a happy life with Layla. He imagines a house with a garden full of carefully tended flowers and children who look just like her. Maybe it's because he's catching a glimpse of a beautiful future that's about to become real. When Kyle gets his exam results, he finds out he did much better than he expected. Meeting with him, Layla asks how it went. He thinks to himself about calling her Mrs. Ettman and wishes he could. Before heading back to Arvis, they take a slow walk around the college campus, the same paths they'll soon walk together as husband and wife. Layla worries because the university has only recently started admitting female students, and only a few are chosen. Kyle, however, is certain she'll pass without trouble. He's watched her for 8 years and knows her well. There's no reason for her to worry. She remarks on how much he's grown. They were about the same height when they first met, and he notes that now he's grown tall enough to be her husband. Then he asks how many children she wants. She says 5, so they won't be lonely and will always have each other to rely on. He imagines a lively home full of little faces that resemble both of them. Every time a hopeful glimmer appears in her eyes, Kyle can't help thinking that maybe he was born to make her happy. He promises to do his best so they can have 5 children. It's a late spring day, and a gentle breeze brushes past them. Kyle feels as if soft feathers are fluttering in his chest, just picturing the days ahead with Layla. It's a moment he knows he'll never forget. Summer arrives, and Layla hopes for a relaxing season, but that won't happen because the Duke is returning to Arvis sooner than expected. Mona talks with Uncle Bill, wondering how many guests will flood the estate this time. She explains that the Duke isn't extending his service anymore, which the Dowager wanted. Given her age, she probably hopes for a grandson. Mona adds that the Duke will now stay in Arvis for good and jokes that maybe it's time for her to hang up her apron. Meanwhile, Layla prays she never meets the Duke again. She wonders if it's because the last coin she threw into the fountain didn't enter the jug, but she doesn't see it as a bad thing. Even if the Duke comes back to Arvis, soon she'll be in Ratsey with Kyle, and if things go well, she won't care whether the Duke returns or not. At the same time, the Duke is making preparations to return to Arvis. Time passes, and now at Mr. Bill's house, there's a knock on the door. He opens it to find a postman standing there with a letter for Layla. It's the same postman who brought little Layla to Arvis years ago. Mr. Bill takes the letter and reads through it, surprised and overjoyed. Layla has been accepted into a prestigious college, one so exclusive that even aristocrats struggle to get in. The postman congratulates him and recalls that first day at the train station, helping little Layla into a carriage and bringing her to Mr. Bill. He admits he feels emotional about the news and praises Bill for raising her so well. Then he asks where Layla is. Bill says she's gone for a walk in the woods. The postman considers waiting for her, but decides he will congratulate her another time since he has many deliveries to make. They say their goodbyes, and he leaves. Bill sits quietly, staring at the acceptance letter. His mind drifts back to the day he first met Layla, a child who had crossed the border with nothing but a letter and a single piece of paper bearing his name. He remembers all the days he's spent with her and the happiness she's brought him. After all the times he told himself to send her away, only to fail each time, he feels a rush of emotion, almost to the point of tears. Soon, Layla returns, waving cheerfully. Seeing her, Bill wonders how long she plans to keep using the old bag he gave her when she first arrived. He asks when she'll finally throw it away. She says it's still good, and she wants to use it a little longer, adding that she'd feel lost without it. She tells him she picked some raspberries and peaches along the way. Bill hands her the letter, and she reads it, realizing she's been accepted into college. She becomes emotional, and Bill struggles to find the right words for a grand speech of congratulations. Layla moves closer and hugs him, thanking him. He quickly reminds her that she earned this through her hard work and exam success, and that he doesn't deserve credit. She tells him that he made it possible. Bill reflects quietly, certain that the small child who came to Arvis brought with her a lifetime of love from Levita. He thinks she might burst into tears on a day this joyous, but he doesn't want that, even if it's tears of happiness. All he wants is to see her smiling. All the love and care he has given to flowers and plants over his life doesn't compare to what he's given her. She has become such a presence in his life that no flowers or plants are more precious than her. He suggests they go to Ratsy together next weekend. Layla is surprised, and he explains that they need to pay her school fees and get her enrolled so they'll travel together. He realizes the truth without hesitation. He should have listened to Mona's nagging and been less clueless about raising a girl. He should have taken her places, shown her beautiful things, and fed her delicious food from the start. He wonders why he's only realizing now that he'll soon have to let her go. He tells himself the reason for going with her is simple. It would be too dangerous to send her off alone with such a large sum of money, and he can't send her with Kyle since the two aren't married yet. Layla hugs him quickly, and he notices she's more excited about the trip than the acceptance letter. He reminds her that he always said she would grow into a fine adult, and congratulates her once more. Early that night, Layla sees Phoebe, the carrier pigeon. It brings a note from Kyle. In the note, he mentions that he was right. They both got accepted into college. He's so happy to receive her note, and even though he wants to run to her place immediately, it's late, so he'll come the next day. He also mentions that his mom wants to officially invite her to their house. Layla remembers his words about him understanding what she worries about. She also knows his mom had someone else in mind for him, so she's probably not happy about their marriage yet. But the marriage is about the two of them and their lives. Kyle truly believes that what matters most is how they feel. And he assures her that if they build a good life together and show happiness, his mom will eventually give her blessing. It will take time, but he believes it will happen. Being honest with herself, Layla admits she's not completely sure. She wonders if her courage was really just recklessness driven by fear of losing Kyle. She questions whether she let her greed take over. The next day, the servants gather at the mansion to welcome the Duke. They talk excitedly about Layla's college acceptance and say that everyone is talking about her. They share how happy they are for her, and she thanks them. Soon, the conversation turns to her marriage to Kyle. They ask when and where it will happen, hoping it will be in Arvis. She is about to answer when the announcement comes. The Duke has arrived. Everyone straightens up as he steps out of the car. His grandmother welcomes him warmly, saying she feels reassured knowing he'll be staying in Arvis. His mother notices the yellow bird in the cage and asks if it's the same canary he took to Ratsy. He confirms it. She comments that it's strange to think of him cherishing a bird so much since he's never even kept a dog before. His eyes immediately find Layla. That night, Layla gets ready to visit the Ettman house. She asks Kyle if he's sure she looks all right. He nods and asks if she's nervous. She admits she is, noting that it's a special day. This is the first time Mrs. Ettman has invited her over, and she wants to make a good impression, especially since the woman had opposed their marriage. Kyle reassures her, telling her she's more than enough just as she is. Layla checks with Uncle Bill, asking if she looks presentable. He agrees and tells her not to worry, reminding her this isn't her first time meeting Mrs. Ettman. He encourages her to just be herself, and that will be more than enough. She notices that Kyle and Uncle Bill both gave the same advice, and she thanks Kyle with a small smile. Soon, they arrive at the Ettman house. Layla is welcomed warmly and thanks Mrs. Ettman for inviting her. The mother asks what gift she brought. Layla offers peach jam, and Kyle mentions that she made it herself. Mrs. Etman smiles and thanks her, and Layla thinks to herself that the mother seems pleased. Mrs. Etman ushers her inside, and Kyle reminds her there's nothing to worry about. The mother shares that she prepared Layla's favorite dishes and hopes she likes them. Layla remarks that she's so kind, and Mrs. Etman tells her to have as much as she likes. Kyle smiles at her, and she smiles back. They start chatting and laughing, enjoying the meal together. Meanwhile, Mrs. Etman thinks to herself that the day she feared has finally come. Her son engaged to someone like Layla. She recalls a conversation with her husband, wondering how he could approve a marriage based on the words of a naive child. She worries about what will happen now that Kyle is pursuing Layla constantly, proposing whenever he can, and how much gossip this will cause. Her husband responds calmly, noting that he understands her feelings. She interrupts, insisting he doesn't because he is the kind and generous Dr. Etman. He counters that all he wants is for Kyle to marry someone he loves, and she knows how lovely Layla is. She admits that Layla is a good girl, but argues that marriage is real life, and approving it will hurt their son's social status. He remarks that the world is changing, and social status will soon become outdated. She bites her lip, caught between worry and resignation. At the moment, Mrs. Etman stares at Layla and thinks to herself that her husband is wrong. Even if social status fades, something else will always take its place, and social ranks will never truly vanish. Just like Layla's roots will never change, no matter that she has been accepted into the Empire's top university. Layla notices her staring and quickly asks with a smile how the food is. Layla responds that it's delicious. Mrs. Etman reflects that Layla is a girl who lost her parents, drifted from one relative to another, and ended up in Berg. She dreads how common the girl must seem. She wishes Layla had come from a simple, respectable family. The fact that Layla is such a good girl makes her feel even more resentment. If only Layla had some flaw, some reason to dislike her. She wouldn't feel this self-loathing, or know that she's become petty and mean-spirited. She realizes she despises everything about Layla. Her pretty face, her smile, her kind nature, her sharp mind, even her pitiful circumstances. Meanwhile, Dr. Etman talks about Dr. Lorenz at Ratze University. He notes that the man is a renowned expert on aviation biology, and that Layla should take his classes. Having an esteemed mentor will be a great advantage for her. Layla accepts gratefully. Mrs. Etman then asks if Layla still watches the birds in the forest. Layla affirms, explaining that she keeps yearly records of both the local and migratory birds in Arvis. Mrs. Etman admits it's fascinating, but the thought of Layla's ambitions irritates her. She doubts that someone like Layla could truly handle the responsibilities of being the lady of the Etman family. Kyle is gentle and agreeable. She can't imagine him happy with Layla as his wife. She decides she must stop this no matter what it takes for the sake of her son and the family. After dinner, Layla is outside with Kyle. He notes that it's a perfect day. She jokes, asking if he's had too much wine. He reassures her he's fine and can still escort her home. He has a mental trick that always brings him back to focus: the thought of Uncle Bill's shovel. He asks how her evening was, and she responds that she was happy his mother was welcoming. He admits he was a little nervous too, because it was an important and special day for him. He adds that he still feels like he's dreaming, and she wonders if it's the wine making him feel that way. Soon, he holds her hands and stares at her, moving closer. He touches her face and begins to close the gap between their lips. Kyle leans forward to kiss her, but Layla gently places her hand over her lips to stop him. He opens his eyes in surprise and steps back a little. She explains that it feels strange, almost like they are doing something wrong, and he can't help but look a little shocked. How can a simple kiss feel wrong between two people who are about to get married? He wonders if she realizes how much courage it took for him to try it in the first place. Layla tries to explain herself, but Kyle points out that she always acts like she knows everything. She asks what he means, and he reminds her about the conversation they had before, about reproduction and how every creature goes through it to survive. She looks away quietly, speechless, and he notices how confidently she acted back then, like she knew it all. She stammers and tries to explain more, but in the end, she admits she doesn't really know. Kyle notices a pattern. She often says that when things don't go the way she expects. Even though they are engaged, their relationship still feels very much like close friends. At times, Kyle wonders if they might end up married without ever really being lovers, but he doesn't let himself feel sad about it. What he wants most is her heart, and he knows he can't risk rushing things or hurting her in the moment. He asks her to look at him and teases that she doesn't know anything about kissing. She accepts that, nodding quietly. Then, carefully, gently, and with patience, Kyle presses his lips to her smooth forehead. They hug each other, close and warm, and thankfully, she accepts his small compromise. As he breathes in slowly, the cold air carries the soft, sweet scent of roses. He recognizes it immediately. It's Layla's scent, and it makes the moment feel quiet and calm. Since Duke Herhart has returned to the estate and started focusing fully on his family's affairs, it's only natural that his fiancée would spend her time in Arvis. During this visit, one name quickly becomes the talk of the town: Layla. People are curious, asking if it's really true that she has been accepted into college. Mrs. Dowager confirms it, adding that Layla is a truly remarkable child and that Mr. Bill is determined to let her attend. The Duke's mom comments that Layla must be incredibly lucky to have such a benefactor like Mr. Bill, and even to marry into a family so far above her station. She calls it a once-in-a-lifetime stroke of fortune. Claudine is surprised to hear that Layla is engaged to the doctor's son. Her mind flashes back to the party where Layla attended with Kyle as her partner. Despite the surprise, she admits quietly to herself that it is a relief such good fortune has come to Layla. Grandma Dowager, upon hearing the news, decides to invite Layla for a cup of tea. She called her while Layla was in the garden helping her uncle. Layla walks over, a little hesitant at first, and Dowager invites her to sit. She pauses for a moment but eventually takes a seat. Dowager warmly congratulates her on the remarkable achievement and humbly expresses her gratitude for all the support and guidance she has received from Uncle Bill. Then the old lady questions if she is from Levita, and Layla explains that her mother was from Levita while her father was from Berg. Dowager notes that in that case, they are alike, sharing roots from distinguished places. Claudine, watching quietly, thinks about Grandma's family. The Dowager comes from a long, prestigious line of Marcuses and is a relative of the Emperor of Berg, and her mother is from the royal family of Levita. Her own lineage is far more noble than Layla's, yet the Dowager treats Layla with such warmth and familiarity, speaking to her as if they were equals. Meanwhile, Grandma Dowager asks Layla what she would like and mentions that Mr. Bill practically raised her as his own daughter, and that she would like to give a small gift to celebrate her achievement as well. Leela is surprised, but she intends to politely decline, only to find that Claudine has already announced the Duke's arrival. He approaches, and Layla stands, bowing respectfully to greet him. Claudine, already standing, notes that he has returned earlier than expected. The Duke explains that his meeting ended sooner than he thought. Grandma Dowager shares the good news about Layla with him and mentions that she invited Layla to congratulate her personally. The Duke listens quietly, his eyes fixed on Layla. Enjoying this so far? Comment Layla for part 3. Until next time, ciao!